Happy New Year.
Yo, good morning. Welcome to the Stochastic.com NFL Deeper Dive. Week 17. That means 13 games. You know what that means for next week? It means maybe finding a tall building, Ben. No, I'm joking. Anyway, happy to have you guys with us. It's the Deeper Dive 13 game Sunday slate on New Year's Eve. Happy New Year's, everybody. Happy New Year. Heading into 2024, we've got a lot to talk about coming off a Saturday Cowboys-Lions game. We won't get into any reviews here. Ben and I saved that for first look show. I was wondering, should we do first look show on Wednesday again? It seems to make more sense.
I think so.
Yeah. And the only reason I wasn't sure is because there's no games tomorrow.
I didn't think about that. But yeah, because there's college football playoff is tomorrow. People got that going on.
We'll figure it out. Anyway, happy to have you guys with us. We love you. We love that you're hanging out with us on New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, I mean, ready to win some money. Let's have a good week, dude. What do you think? We didn't come into this with some positive. I want you to come into this with positive mentality towards making money. I want you to come in with a negative mentality towards how many thumbs up we get, because generally speaking, that works out well for us. We get a ton of likes. People come in, they atone for their sins on a Sunday morning. They say, football gods, please, may I be forgiven. Enlighten me. Show me the way on a Sunday morning so that I may prosper. But right. But
But what?
If you come in with a negative attitude towards like having a great week from a DFS perspective, I think that is actually a self-fulfilling prophecy. So it's kind of, antithetical to what we do with the likes, but we're going to play it that way. So we're going to win some money. We're not going to get any thumbs up, and we're going to hit 1,000 likes.
Okay. Well, you got it covered, I guess. Sure. Why not? I mean, this is a week. There's so many games. It's different. It's definitely different. 13 games versus like 9 games makes a huge difference. I do like it because we're going to get into all sorts of pivots. I think there's a lot of game theory to it. But I'm excited to dive in. I know a lot of people, and this is the truth. This is not just me spinning why we're not going to get a lot of likes. A lot of people got a lot of shit going on today. There's New Year's Eve. So this is really just the ride or dies that are with us today, and we appreciate it.
We do.
I almost wasn't with us. Physically, mentally, you almost had to do the show solo.
I know. But yes, take a single second, atone for your sins. Hit that thumbs up, guys. Goes a long way for us. We appreciate you for it. And subscribe to the channel. And Mike with a Y, H, with a $10 super chat out of the gate. Good morning, guys. Thank you for all the advice. Would you play Devon Achane and Curtis Samuel, or Jonathan Taylor and Michael Wilson? First off, we have a free player compare tool. We'll give you an answer on this for sure. We have a free player compare tool over at Stochastic. You can do the 1v1s and the 2v2s without a single cost to yourself. Give you the projections on that, the ownership, and then we'll give you which side of that 1v1 or 2v2 is better, given our projections and ownership for tournaments. However, in that spot, I would go Taylor Wilson.
So would I. It's close, and I will say, just looking at our projections, they're almost identical. I just like, in terms of I like some of the cheap Cardinals. That's our first game, so we're going to talk about it quickly. But yeah, I'm with you.
All right, so how you feeling, man? You texted me yesterday. You had the old food poisoning.
I did. I haven't had food poisoning in. I mean, you can tell. Look how pale I am, right? I got no color.
Yeah, because usually.
Because usually
bronze complexion I've ever seen.
I lost
all that sun you get.
It's such a bummer. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I caught the only good thing about food poisoning like that. 12 hours, I was just dead. That was it, though. No, I feel completely I think I cracked a rib from throwing up so much, but I swear to.
Yeah, dude, I know that. Last time I had it was from ate steak and mushrooms, and it must have been the mushrooms. And I shit and puked simultaneously for like 12 straight hours. I thought about going to the ER.
Yeah, no, I was in bad shape. And then yesterday I did not move. I just sucked ice chips and gambled, which isn't that different than a normal Saturday for me, honestly. But yeah, now I'm back. I feel good though. I feel good. I'm ready to rock.
It takes a lot for you to miss a show.
Yeah, I did not do shows yesterday. I couldn't. I
I
just
don't
couldn't.
blame, dude. Food poisoning is the worst thing in
It
the
was
world.
rough. It was actually like I knock on wood, I don't get sick a lot. I'm such a diva. Like I complain about everything. I was actually sick.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It was really fucking bad.
It's
Um,
horrible, and it's violent too. It's
oh
violent.
yeah.
It's not. It's
You know
so
what though?
bad.
We're here and
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm ready to go. New lease on life. Let's do this.
You know
And look
what's
at this.
bothering? Can I tell you what's bothering me a little bit though?
Sure.
By the way, Nicholas Lynn, thank you, brother. Gifting 5 memberships to our wonderful audience here from the sin bin. Your head's not centered with your backdrop. Now it's the other way, not centered. Now it's still not centered.
I didn't.
Give
Oh,
me
I see
like
what you're saying.
there, almost. There.
Hold on. I gotta get situated here. Let me move the. How's that?
No, you have to move it the other way. Much better.
Okay.
Much better. That's the
Okay.
Ben Rassa I know
Okay.
and love. All right, let's
Let
talk
me.
about it. 13 games. We've got Arizona and Philly up first. Arizona 12.5-point dogs. It does amaze me, quite frankly, that the Eagles continue to be huge favorites in these spots. Like, should they be? Yeah, probably, Ben. Probably, right? They probably should. But we're still talking about an Eagles team that has had trouble putting bad teams away. Marquise Brown's on the IR. Kyler Murray, by the way, this is like illness season. Have you noticed that we didn't really have any of these players questionable with illnesses, and now this week there's like 10 of them that have illnesses and are questionable but expected to play. In what capacity, we'll find out. But yeah, it's a 12.5-point spread in Philly at the Link. Chilly day, but nothing terrible here. I still think though Arizona is a team that you don't just sleep on them because they're 12.5-point dogs, especially if they have to play from behind early. Trey McBride's been a revelation. This guy, even before Zach Ertz went down, you remember, go back.
Yep.
I was on the over props for McBride before Ertz went down, and I barely got there for what it's worth. But then the next week, Ertz gets hurt and it's over, and McBride just takes off. He's the number one target. Even before Marquise Brown got hurt, he was the number one there for whoever they had at quarterback. Now you're talking about Kyler Murray being active, Trey McBride being good, Marquise Brown being on the IR, and a Philadelphia Eagles team that, let's be completely reasonable here, has struggled to tackle. Their secondary has sucked. Darius Slay is out again. They don't have any real coverage in the middle of the field ever. So I want to get into this Cardinals team a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna just dive right into the Cardinals here and really break them down because I think it's actually a really good team to talk about on so many levels. So I want to start always with Kyler. He's sick because the whole country is sick. Everyone is under the weather, but I'm just assuming it's going to be fine there. And most likely, because they are giant underdogs, he's going to be throwing 39 and 38 attempts in the last couple games. And then let's think about, okay, if he's throwing around that, who are those going to? You mentioned Hollywood's on the IR. So we've got Dortch, we've got Rondell, we've got Wilson, and we've got McBride. Yeah, you can have some backfield dump off, sure. But all of those guys are pretty reasonably priced. So when you look at Arizona, this is a team that I'm not even saying I want to stack Kyler, but you have easy run backs with Hurt stacks. You have easy pay down one-offs. You could even take a couple of guys if you want to take McBride and one of the 3K wide receivers and just say that Arizona is going to be throwing a bunch and the target share will be there. I don't think I want to get too crazy with Connor. I'd say he's playable at 5,900, but there are a lot of running backs on this slate. So despite being a team that, they're a 12.5-point underdog, it's a 40.5-point total though. I like Arizona in terms of playable pieces. They're not my favorite stack. They're not even my favorite team, but I'd be lying to you if I said I'm just completely erasing them from the slate. I think you have pay down options that we can get into.
There's a lot of pay down options that we can get into. And, there's, like you said, there's a lot of different ways to play this too, right? I mean, let's be fair. Kyler Murray does have pretty significant rushing upside. Maybe that hasn't been on display every game this season, but the Eagles, and I've talked about this a lot with you, the two of us have talked about it quite a bit. The Eagles definitely have struggled against rushing quarterbacks as well. We've seen even guys that don't have, Josh Allen type rushing upside. We've seen them go off for pretty significant games on the ground. So I think if you're talking like Kyler Murray, McBride, even single stacks, right? Or if you wanted to go double stacks because you're getting such discounts on guys like Wilson or, who else? Wilson, Rondell Moore. Look, everything from him is after the catch. But again, the Eagles have struggled to tackle. Dortch, and then running it back with an A.J. Brown or even a Swift or a Devontae Smith or a Dallas Goedert. Would you consider full out stacking this? Like, it's not hard. You know what? I know it's weird, but if you did have a double Murray stack with 2 Eagles run backs, I don't think it's the craziest notion in the world.
No, it's definitely not the craziest. I do think I look at Trey McBride kind of in a tier of himself for the Cardinals, but you do have options now. Again, it's a giant slate. So the onslaught, I think, is less effective because there's going to be so many one-offs out there that probably outscore like the 5th highest score on an individual game. But this is one of the better games just price-wise. And I think for the Eagles, you mentioned from Swift to Brown to Hurts, it's one of the better pay-up options today.
Okay. It is definitely one of the better options. And I guess though with Arizona, the floor is very low here. We know that.
Of course.
But the Eagles, we can't, here's the way I'll say it. We can't look at the Eagles defense as something that's like a brick wall, right? Like they have been gashed at times. And you want to look at Tommy DeVito and Tyrod Taylor last week. Fine. They didn't do much, but they did have they kind of did. I mean, I say they didn't do a ton because they had a pick 6, right? So there was a pick 6 in that game. But they still had a chance to tie it at the end of the game on the final drive with a 2-point conversion and a touchdown. Would you be shocked if Kyler and company put up like 24 today?
Definitely not. And again, it's all about that price point. There's a lot of room there. I don't think you need to go crazy, but if you're looking for salary relief, Arizona is a team that has that. And then Trey McBride is just good. He's just a solid play. He could be the best tight end play on the slate.
Hey, real quick, looking to get some lineups in here. Is the SPY, did they drop the SPY down to 50K to first this week?
No, you missed that.
It closed, the 100K closed already? Because what I don't know.
No, 50K. So there's 2 SPYs.
They're both 50K though, and one of them, one of them
filled.
The smaller one filled though, and then they made a bigger one filled.
The 300K SPY is still open though.
Right, but it's usually 400K SPY, 100K up top.
Well, if that's the case, I missed it too because I'm not in that.
Yeah, because this one is 50K up top, 300,000.
Yeah, they dropped it. Okay.
Yeah. It's just funny because the smaller one filled first.
Yeah, that is kind of weird.
Anyway, all right. Besides the point. With Philly, you can kind of do whatever you want. I ran the Sims earlier this morning, and we'll run it again. I mean, I'm always... I want to run it to see what I'm getting, and then after the inactives reported 11:30, I'm going to run it. Yeah, run it again. But one thing I noticed, a lot of Jalen Hurts QB +1 stacks, 21% of them, as a matter of fact. In total, I'm getting about 20% Jalen Hurts Eagle stacks today.
I mean, and it's easy to see why. Just elite upside, great matchup, double-digit favorite at home, plenty of value on the slate. What's not to like? I mean, if you get pass interference in the end zone, if Swift does his normal routine, it's an automatic touchdown for Hurts. That's not even an exaggeration. Like, that's just the case. There's a lot to really like there. And I definitely think that Hurts and A.J. Brown is a skinny stack that I want to get to.
Yeah, it's funny because when I ran these on Friday doing the Sim strategy show with Greg, when we thought that Isaiah Pacheco wouldn't clear concussion protocol, I was getting a lot more other spots. I'm not funny because I'm not sure why. I would have thought I would still get just as much, if not more Hurts, because you were getting a cheaper Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But you are getting value here. Wait till we get to Denver too. I can't wait to get your thoughts on that.
Oh my God.
I know it's at the end of the show, but and then we'll turn it over to Live Before Lock. They'll hit on a bunch of injury stuff. Like Cortland Sutton's out. Marvin Mims is doubtful now. Russell Wilson's no longer going to play with the Denver Broncos. So you're talking like Jerry Jeudy spots from Jared Stidham against the Chargers team that has nothing to play for either.
Yeah, there's just gonna be a lot of that today. So I mean, Hertz is at the top of the wish list. He grades out excellent in the tools. It's no surprise he's gonna come up in your sim runs. Uh, there's nothing to say. It's just all systems go there.
Who are your top plays from this game then?
Hertz and AJ Brown and McBride, the big guns for both sides.
Okay. You liked Swift a ton earlier in the week.
So I still do. I think what I'm running into a little more is that the opportunity cost for me with running back is pretty vast. Not that it isn't for quarterback. And I don't know if I'm going to have a ton of Swift with Hurts. So if I don't go to the Eagles stack, I'm getting Swift in there because I think he's a phenomenal play. We've talked about this. Landing on the 1 yard line is all luck. I don't think that means anything. Like he's going to score eventually more than he scored last week, but he could have had 3.
Exactly. And he could have had 3 the week before as well. Should have had 3 the week before.
It's just the way it is right now. So I'm not downgrading Swift by any stretch. It's just another way to get exposure to the Eagles. He's 6,500. I said to you on the first look show, I think there's an argument that the 6K running back could be the 7K running backs. Like I don't have him different than Jonathan Taylor, than Rachaad White and those players. So I'm fine with Swift. He's just another piece of the puzzle.
Yep. Goody said, Lafayette, I hate to say this, but I like the cards to shock. Dude, wouldn't surprise me at all.
That would be a shock. I would be stunned.
It would be a shock because the Eagles need to win, but I've said it to you on Tuesday or on Wednesday. This is the most dysfunctional 11-4 team I've seen in a long time. I'm serious too. They're dysfunctional.
Fair
anyway,
enough.
And the crazy thing about Swift is it's not like DeAndre Swift is falling down at the 1 and then getting another and then getting stuffed at the 1 and then getting stuffed at the 1 again. And we're saying, oh, he had 3 down at the 1. No, we're talking 3 separate drives where he goes down at the 1 on something that starts at like the 8 or 9, on a play from the 8 or 9. Like he picks up what?
He'll never have a carry from the 1. It's not possible.
Exactly. But he picks up 8 from the 9. He picks up 9 from the
terrible.
10. It's a lot of variance and luck though in a spot like that. There's no doubt about it. That can change quickly. My favorite plays from this one, yeah, McBride. Okay. I'll take a stand here. I feel like you're going to agree. It feels like the AJ Brown explosion game that we get several times a year could be today.
I think so as well. Again, him and Hurts is a pay up skinny that I'm willing to take.
Last question. I know we spent a lot on this game, but I think it's entirely necessary. Who is, especially given what the Sims are providing me right now, who are your favorite value plays from the Arizona Cardinals? And you can't say none, because if you do decide to stack them, they're all, without Marquise Brown in a game where they're going to have to throw a lot, and you can't say McBride, obviously.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be. It would be the pay down receivers specifically if I was going to take a shot with one. And I know he's a little more expensive, but I think that the way Dortch operates, he could get a little more of that target share. It's probably where I would look if I had to pick you're kind of flipping here, but I would say Wilson over Moore, but that's just kind of gut feel.
Yeah, I hear you. And Dortch does get some red zone and end zone targets too, which is highly valuable as a cheap option, because even if none of these guys produce big receiving numbers, getting in the end zone can make up for a lot of that. All right, let's talk about the next one. We've got Miami and Baltimore. So out of the gate, we've got 2 pretty crazy games, right? There's going to be some ugly ones here. There's going to be some teams where we just kind of wipe off the map entirely. This is not one of them. Miami, oh yeah, we can get to those, Ben. Sure. Ben just alerted me that we had a couple super chats, so let's hit on them. Here we got Humble Spriggs with a super chat. Thank you, sir. If you had a question, throw it in there, because there's nothing with it. And then Michael Hoff, $10 super chat. Thanks, man. Shit and puke talk. For a second there, I thought we jumped to Arthur Smith and the Falcons offense. Yeah, cheers, fellas. Don't worry, man. We will. We will. Thank you, though. So no Jalen Waddle. Raheem Mostert's doubtful, which isn't surprising. Even though he played last game after that injury, he didn't seem right at all. He scored. He still didn't seem right. Waddle's out. Raheem Mostert's doubtful. Funny thing, though, this line hasn't moved off of 3.5. I think it was set with Jalen Waddle expected out. Raheem Mostert, who knows? But it's still at 3.5. Really big game for both of these teams, Ben. So I'm not sleeping on Miami either. It's a tough matchup. Baltimore is a great defensive team. We saw them in prime time on Christmas Eve or was it Christmas Day? Christmas Day? Yeah, it was Christmas Day. It was Christmas Day against San Francisco. Go into
Oh
San
yeah,
Francisco.
the night game. Yep.
Yeah, and the defense beat the piss out of Brock Purdy and company. Uh, I think Brock Purdy got benched in that game, and they're just saying it was an injury, but whatever, unimportant. So, what are we doing with Tyreek Hill? What are we doing with Devon HM? What are we doing with, like, do we look towards the tight end position on a spot like this? Do we look towards any of these cheap guys? I know it sounds ugly. That's not lost on me. But do we say, hey, like Durham Smythe at sub 3K is viable? Do you look at a Cedric Wilson Jr. in a game that does have a 46.5 point total here, even though Baltimore has a good defense?
Yeah, and it's not coming just from Baltimore because it's a three point
Exactly.
spread. So like the
Exactly.
implied total for Miami is very healthy. I do think so. That's part of the reason with Arizona. It's not to say those guys that we talked about weren't playable, particularly the pay down wide receivers, but do you like them more than Cedric Wilson, who should get a big bump today? I think he's going to be very active. You mentioned Spice, sub 3K. These guys are going to have to play a role. Tyreek's Tyreek. If you can go get him, go get him. Even against Baltimore, he's always got that upside. Is he my favorite play? No. If I had the money, would I gladly take him? Yeah, absolutely. So I get it. I'm not getting to Tua stacks. I mentioned you on First Look Show. I had no interest in HN if Mostert played. Obviously, he's not going to play. He's going to get the work, but I'm still not sure I'm in love. Like, I like Swift more than him. I think yeah, I do. I definitely do. And I think for Miami, as a, like counterintuitive as it is, I think my favorite option is the paydown option, particularly Cedric Wilson.
There is something about that, right? I mean, you're getting Cedric Wilson at a dirt cheap price point attached to a team that can put up numbers. Remember last year when these teams played each other early in the season? You remember what happened?
Um,
No? Did I ask you the same thing on Wednesday and now you still don't? Remember Baltimore was up 21 in the fourth quarter?
so I remember now that you say that, them blowing that game, but no. And you didn't ask me this on Wednesday. There's no way.
I didn't?
No,
Okay. I think I did.
no, you didn't.
Well, you know what? If you can't remember that game, you probably don't remember Wednesday.
That's also true.
But yeah, it was Baltimore was up. They had a huge lead, and then Tua came down and they scored like 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter early in the season. And it was crazy. That was the game where, like, if you didn't have a full out game stack, a full out Baltimore Miami game stack, you just weren't winning anything that week. Am I saying Lightning's going to strike twice in the same spot? No, of course not. Could it? I mean, I think it's entirely possible that Miami puts up numbers. I think the absence of Jalen Waddle will be felt for sure.
Definitely.
Because, yeah, as good as Tyreek Hill is, you still have to account for a guy like Waddle, who's phenomenal. Like Waddle on a different team is a clear, Waddle on a team without Tyreek Hill could give you, how many consecutive 1,200-yard seasons, right?
I also think just like, again, this isn't overly relevant to the slate, but like opportunity, like losing Mostert, and I'm a huge Mostert guy. That's not nearly as important as losing Waddle. Waddle's the bigger injury to Miami, in my opinion.
Yeah, because now you can just give Devon Achane a lot. And
yeah, you can always replace a running back like that.
How involved do you think Jeff Wilson's going to be?
I think he'll have a role. I don't know if he himself is playable, though. I would say that he's not, just because of a 13-game slate.
I don't want to play him. I'm just talking about how much does he take away from Achane?
Enough that I'm concerned that I still think Achane's going to have to live on efficiency. I really do. I don't think it's a volume play against Baltimore.
It's not. And that's a problem because Devon Achane has lived on efficiency the entire season. And in many cases, it's worked out for him. But now you've seen this kind of fall back down to earth where over the last couple of games with Raheem Mostert active, obviously, he's been fine, but has he been great? Like against Washington, 17 for 73, 4.3 yards per attempt. He found the end zone twice in that game. Against Dallas, 7 for 24, 3 for 7 receiving, 9 for 32 on the ground against the Jets. You're talking 3.4, 3.6 yards per attempt. The hope here is that he has to be efficient, but my concern is how much volume does he get now? Like, are we penciling in a 20-touch game or a 20-opportunity game for HM? Because if we are, then at 6,700, I still really like him against Baltimore. But I'm not sure we know.
Yeah, I'm not sure we know either. And again, it wasn't like Mostert was getting a ton of work in the passing game, so it's not like he's going to absorb all these like random targets. He'll do what he does, and we know he can catch the ball. I'm not saying he's not going to be busy. I just don't know exactly what we see. So he's definitely playable. Definitely playable. But he's competing against, I think, some really quality backs, particularly Swift. Saquon is right there. I'm not in love with Eckler today, but there's just other backs there. So he's playable, but he's not my favorite in the 6K range.
You gotta tell me how to pronounce that, because I don't even know if there is a way to pronounce that 2K, but he hangs with us all the time, so we know him. I know the name for sure. Said, won't HM be much more involved in the passing game now? Entirely possible, yes. With Jalen Waddle out, with how explosive Devon Achane is in the passing game, I think so. I think I like him a little bit more than you do. Am I getting to like 40% Devon Achane? I can't imagine that'll be the case, but I would like. Also, to be fair, I'm getting a pretty decent mix once I get past a lot of Zamir White exposure. I'm
Yep.
getting a pretty decent mix of running backs. I would just like Devon Achane, and I'm not trying to toe the fence, like straddle the fence here. It's a 13 game slate. I don't want to have no Devon Achane in this spot.
No, I get that. Because again, the guy is incredibly explosive. There's no denying that. And there's no way he's going to get less work. So all those things are positive. Still a Baltimore defense on the road. Yeah, but to me, it's Cedric Wilson as a pay down, and then you got the big two, Achane and Tyreek.
But are you prioritizing Hill on this slate?
No,
You're not.
no, prioritizing Hill, definitely not.
Are you prioritizing McCaffrey?
Closer.
Close.
If I really pet, yeah, I'd rather have McCaffrey.
Okay.
The
Okay. Because
thing,
if I'm not asking you about McCaffrey in the same sentence as Tyreek Hill, it doesn't help.
the third part of that though, and we'll tie this all together at some point. There's also a way to prioritize AJ Brown and Kyron over either of them, and I think I'm doing that the most.
Ooh. Okay.
Like I'm not getting to the nines, but I'm going to get multiple next best options at both.
All right. Well, what are you doing with the Ravens then? Zay Flowers is expected to play, by the way. So you got Flowers likely. We already, the Gus Edwards thing is difficult because he is just entirely dependent on touchdowns. Even after Keaton Mitchell hit the IR, you're still talking about a guy in Gus Edwards that is not the lone man in this backfield, right? Like Justice Hill is not going anywhere anytime soon, right? And Melvin Gordon is still going to get, or not Melvin Gordon. I guess it's just Justice Hill, right? Because Melvin Gordon's, I think, on the active roster, but he hasn't seen any work. But Justice Hill's not going anywhere.
No, he's not. But the entire backfield for Baltimore only serves really one purpose, which is I don't think they're playable, but they can screw up anything you do with Baltimore, and that's just like part of the inherent risk with that team. I'll keep it pretty simple. I think that Zay Flowers is a very solid option. Lamar as a skinny, also very solid. You have the run backs on Miami. That's the extent of it. If I was doing a QB +2, it would be Flowers and likely. But to me, it's Flowers, Lamar, and that's basically it.
Yeah, I don't mind Zay Flowers in this spot at all. The Lamar Zay Flowers single stacks look good to me. Would you go Lamar likely single stacks?
I don't think so. I'm not saying you couldn't, but it's not my favorite only because I really like a lot of tight ends on this slate.
Okay. I'm just looking now at the Sims, and I'm in the lineups, the ones I favorited, sorted by simulated ROI. And the highest sim ROI Lamar stacks are Lamar, Flowers, likely, a lot of Lamar, Flowers, and likely, and then just some single Lamar and Flowers stacks.
That's what I mean. Like the skinny is pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, the skinny Lamar Flowers stack actually looks pretty good too. Look, you got Debo in there. You've got Cook, Zamir White. Yeah, some of these look pretty nice. Anyway, let's move on. Those two games were important. Favorite way to play Miami and Baltimore if you're stacking it?
Lamar, Flowers, Wilson.
Okay.
Wilson? On the
Wilson?
run back. Yeah, Wilson.
Oh, Cedric Wilson. Yeah.
So, yeah, Cedric on the. Now, listen, if you want to construct differently and punt with a different team, Lamar, Flowers, Achane or Tyreek, of course. Like that's clear. I just don't think I want to disperse my salary like that.
But you likely aren't getting to Tua stacks, right? This would be more so
No,
single.
I'm not getting to Tua stacks. There's no way.
Okay. Me neither. Matter of fact, I don't really have much Tua at all, but I do have a decent amount of Miami. So that'll tell you all you need to know in a spot like this. Let's get to the next one here. We've got San Francisco and Washington. San Francisco minus 14 on the road, 49.5 point total. 49.5 point total. This Washington defense has been a cash cow for us from a betting perspective this year, from a DFS perspective, no doubt about it, right? I mean, to the point where Desmond Ridder, who's benched, won people, the Millie. Desmond Ridder won the Millie for people against Washington earlier in the season. Now it's San Francisco, huge favorites. It was supposed to be Jacoby Brissett. Ron Rivera finally pulled the trigger there, but now he's unlikely to play, right? So you've got Sam Howell likely injected back into this offense. It's been a total mess. I want to start with Washington because I don't think I'm getting to anything here. Chris Rodriguez coming off a 2-touchdown game. He's on the IR, but Brian Robinson is back. I suppose if you wanted to look towards like a Curtis Samuel or something and hope that on volume alone he gets there, but I'm not going to an Antonio Gibson in a super deep running back slate. For me, this is mostly just San Francisco in its entirety.
Yeah, I'm not messing around with Washington much at all. They're a mess. They're a dumpster fire. I don't like anything about them. We saw just a couple weeks ago, McLaurin exploded for about 10 minutes and had a huge game, and that was with Jacoby Brissett. I don't know what they're doing. So if you want to tell me you want to take a shot on one of the receivers and they're going to throw the ball a ton, sure, I get it. I don't really have much to say though. It's a 13-game slate. I don't think you need to do that.
Terry McLaurin popping up in the Sims run that Jordan did, where guys, we're doing, we're simulating, in this case, a large field contest with a 25% to first place payout. 40,000 times we're simulating that contest. So like, this is how much exposure we've gotten on Terry McLaurin right now on the top 150 lineups. 9% Ben, and then everybody else is popping up like one time. One Logan Thomas, one Curtis Samuel, Commanders. That's about it. So it's pretty much in line with what we were saying.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Yeah, Washington's just one of the. If I was ranking all the teams, they might be actually dead last. There's not a team that I have any interest in.
Jordan said, what I miss about this show from last year was they used to do their favorite stacks of the day. Now they just talk about each stack on each team. This is how I think we've always done it. But when we're in each team, we talk about it being our, like, if you go back and listen to last week, if you were to go back to the Browns, I specifically asked Ben, are the Browns one of your favorite stacks? And you said definitively yes. So we do that. It just might be in each game instead of a full out recap. But Browns was a heavy spot last week. And I think we've made it pretty clear.
Yeah. I mean, you got to find priorities. There's nuance. It's not super black and white. I'll tell you what, I'll say it definitively. Washington, not one of my favorite stacks. So you can put that in Shark Bay.
We also said Jacksonville was one of our preferred stacks. Didn't work. But you know what? You're not going to hit them all. All I know is Brown stack looked pretty good last week. Jacksonville, not so much. We'll get to that game. But no, by the way, Joe, I appreciate the feedback. I always tell you guys, if you have feedback on the format of these shows and it's viable, we're more than happy to. We've implemented a lot of feedback from you guys over the years. So hit us. As long as it's reasonable, no problems making that happen. San Francisco on the other side, though. Look, I don't even know how much time I need to spend on this. It's just such a good matchup. Would I have loved if Sam Darnold was starting? Yes, I would have. Some of you may say, what do you mean? You off the Brock Purdy train because of last week? No, it's not it. Sam Darnold's just dirt cheap. And if you inject any semi-competent quarterback into a Kyle Shanahan offense with those weapons against the Washington Commanders, they're probably going to be good. Would he have been chalky? I have no doubt. But at the same time, I'm not getting away from anything here whatsoever. I love this team. I'm getting right now a ton of Brandon Ayuk, Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel, Kittle, Christian McCaffrey. I have 15+% on all 5 of those guys today, Ben.
That's the thing. That's, it's a team. It's weird. It's like the easiest team to talk about and the most difficult because all of them are in play. All of them are good options. You can't play all of them. You're going to have to mix and match. and they're all semi-popular. Like Debo's the lowest projected own right now, and he's still around 10%. Like most of these guys are McCaffrey's, besides Zamir White, one of the highest owned players on the slate. Purdy's going to be one of the highest owned quarterbacks. It's tricky. It's very, very tricky, but they're just great options. They are by far the most live, in my opinion, to hang like 40 real points. Get San Francisco into your lineup, whether that's a stack. If I was stacking it, it would probably be, I'd probably use Kittle in there and then pick one of the other three. One off, my favorites would be Debo or McCaffrey.
Okay. And for what it's worth, Jordan, I don't actually mind at the very end of this show. We can say what our favorite stacks are, favorite ways to play them. With San Francisco, here's what I'm not doing. Ben, I'm not going to try and get cute on like taking a massive stand on one player.
No, you can't. It's impossible.
Yeah. You can. It's and if it works, you're probably winning a lot of money today, right? If you take a stand on one guy, you're probably crushing. But I'm just, I just can't do it. All of these guys just have massive upside against Washington, so I'm not going to try and figure that out. I'm not smart enough to figure out. I don't know if anybody is on a team that spreads the ball around so much. If there's just like one guy, because Ayuk and Debo and even Kittle, obviously McCaffrey, all of them could give monster performances. Plus, it could be three of them that have big games today.
Absolutely. Like, again, they're going to score a lot of points. And we did have a comment in chat saying, what if San Francisco starts resting players up so much? Two things to that. One, if that happens, someone got there. Like that means they hung a ton of points too. San Francisco can't be messing around. They need these games. So like they're going to be playing and they're going to be playing hard. And I don't worry about that whatsoever, to be honest.
No, this is a very, very meaningful game.
Yeah.
For the I think there's this notion that like, oh, they got it locked up in the NFC. I mean, should they win this game? Absolutely. But they have what's that?
And they're going to, but
but they have the same record as the Philadelphia Eagles. So they hold the tiebreaker, but they have the same record. So yeah, if they were, like you said, it's a great point. If they were to bench these guys in the fourth quarter, they've got 45 points on the board. And then we're
100%.
okay. Yeah. Then we're okay. Because in order to bench them, guys, somebody needs to score. The downside would be is if the defense just has like a multi-touchdown game. That would suck. But you can't play it for that. Debo, Ayuk, McCaffrey, Kittle, Purdy. Look, I get it. I'm not. How does that help me? It helps you by just play these guys, right? Am I wrong? I don't think there's another way to look at it.
No, I think it's just, where are you falling price point wise? The options. Simple as that. I really, we got 13 of these bad boys. I think San Francisco is one of the easier ones to talk about.
Me too. I have a question for you. So, Owner's Box, sponsor of the Deeper Dive, they have been all season long, and been very happy to see so many of our viewers have amazing seasons there. I had somebody DM me the other day, and it was on the Hall of Fame segment too, but it was a screenshot, and then it was another screenshot, and it was just like 7 different Owner's Box wins, right? Like just across the board. Olympus 12, Yamaha. Shout out to him, by the way. Took down first place, 3,500 the other day. We had Drew earlier in the year take down first place in the big one for 20K. There it is. Mo Terps was the other one. Look at dude. He just like is sweeping the board on Owner's Box. It's been great to see. And I can say with certainty that most people, including myself, like if we didn't have this partnership, most people wouldn't have heard about Owner's Box and been getting in on what we've seen as massive overlay all season long.
Been there. It's been an opportunity, still an opportunity. And with opportunity is the second part, results. And now we're starting to see them. We've been seeing them all year, but more and more, those stochastic avatars have been across the board over there. And as we've talked about a lot, it's just simply easier when you've got some overlay in there. We're not paying the rake. That stuff adds up. And what's there to say? We've got the tools to support it. It's been awesome. It's been a part of the process. It's not, I'm not shifting all my volume over there. No chance. I like to have a dispersed portfolio. I do some sports betting, got some DraftKings, some Owner's Box, a lot, mix and match, but it's definitely something If you're looking to get in and put your dollars towards the most advantageous positions, that's one that's got to be towards the top.
Yeah. Olympus, who DM'd me this, and I think he tweeted us, said another solid hit using the Sims. So like you said, using the Sims, because you're not going to find a lot of Sims out there for owner's box either. But anyway, 500 guys, up to $500 first match deposit bonus. If you use the link in the description or chat, just turn your if you have an ad blocker, turn that off, and then you can pop it right back on. You don't need a promo code. You'll also get a $5 DFS ticket for free when you sign up and deposit. You'll get a $5 Lightning Lineups ticket, which is another format over there. And as of now, it's a super flex contest, so you don't never need to play a defense. You can play a quarterback, 2 quarterbacks in the same lineup, right, and just go full out mega stacks. Right now, 30% filled in their big contest, $15,000 up top. I have a good feeling somebody from the stochastic community takes that down today.
Hopefully it's me.
Anyway, if there was a single game stack that you think could be workable to full out game stack with 2 quarterbacks on owner's box, who would it be?
Oh, the Cardinals and the Eagles.
I knew you were going there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Check it out. Link in the description chat. You don't need a promo. Like I said, the link will take you there, get you the deposit bonus, get you the free tickets as well. New England and Buffalo. Ramondre Stevenson was placed on the IR. So was Juju Smith-Schuster. Hunter Henry's questionable. We'll know that sooner than later. 14-point dogs, 40-point total. Buffalo's another team just getting, huge favorites. They're struggling to blow teams out. We saw against the Chargers last week. What are you doing right now with the Patriots? Are you going back to Demario Douglas? Are you going back to Ezekiel Elliott? Or are you off of the Pats this week?
I'm mostly off. I think that Douglas is interesting. Again, you always have to put it in the context of the slate. You're talking about Douglas or Dortch, Douglas or those other 4K wide receivers. And for me, the answer's mostly Douglas. I think he sets up well. The target should be there. They're going to be trailing. Doesn't look like obscenely bad weather or anything. I think he's playable. Zeke, not so much for me, not a priority. If he landed in a lineup, would I freak out? No, but he's just not that. And that's all I really have to say on the Patriots.
Okay. The only other question I have here would be Demario Douglas or Devontae Parker. $700 difference on DraftKings.
I'd go Douglas, but I get why you're asking.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not convinced that the gap is that big between Devontae Parker and Douglas, given like the type of ownership that we see. Devontae Parker's played 91 and 93% of snaps over the last 2 games.
And he has had solid targets. I still think, and again, famous last words, the difference is Douglas's targets are so much more convertible, and it just feels like his floor at that price point is pretty damn secure, where I feel like Parker's got a little higher. And even honestly, the player compare tool says this, like the bust percentage, Parker is higher, and I think he should be. I think his ceiling is fine, but his floor is a little shaky. I like Douglas a little more.
All right. Just playing devil's advocate, even going against the tools for a moment. Parker 7% ownership, Demario Douglas 15% ownership, and Devontae Parker $700 cheaper in the same offense, playing more snaps.
And the tool picks that up. Look at the bottom, the leverage. Devontae Parker is slightly over 0, and Douglas is slightly negative. Yep. So it factors all that in. That's why I love that tool. One of the many things we've got here. So I think it has to be in the complexity of the lineup, but that's about it for the Patriots.
Okay. I don't mind Devontae Parker, honestly. I don't think it's crazy, because I think it is possible if there were to be a long touchdown, and it's, few and far between with New England, Parker could get some of those looks. And if Hunter Henry's out, Hunter Henry's like a legitimate red zone target there. Also somebody that they love to use like at the 20 and target him in the end zone. I think that helps Parker too at 3,600. So
yeah,
putting it out there. I don't really want to pay for Zeke in this spot though.
Neither do I.
Okay.
Close that.
Wondering if I'm getting any Ezekiel Elliott right now. I'm getting 4% Ezekiel Elliott. So I'm fine with that. With 150 favorited lineups in the Sims, 4% Elliott does nothing for me. No emotions there. I'm fine. Jorge with a $20 super chat. Thank you, brother. Thanks for supporting the show all these years. Said, just wanted to wish you guys an amazing 2024. Looking forward to some more W's next year with the amazing data, content, and tools that you guys provide. All the best for you guys individually and that stochastic. Thanks, man. But he's like been one of the he's greatest supporters we have here on the channel. We appreciate
part of the family for sure.
Yeah, man.
And it's appreciated.
And if you guys ever do want to join the family, you know it. Links in the description and in chat. You want to get the Sims Max or Sims Data package, any of that, even just a lineup generator, which is an awesome entry level tool and has won people a ton of money, get you in at a great price. All of that stuff in the description, and you get in the premium Discord as well. So if you don't want to just chat in here, you get in the Discord, you get access to all of our tools. You can do it for a week or a month. Still a lot of football left. So we'd love to have you over there. Take advantage of great tools and a great community. Come say hi in the event that you do as well. And it was awesome. We saw so many people jump in the holiday promo too. So many people.
Both. And we're going to talk about Odd Shopper a little later in the show. It's been on everything, betting, DFS. We're just having a great time here.
I got to ask you about the Bills because, because I know earlier in the week you were saying that Stefon Diggs could be somebody that you look to get to at his price point. I'm still having a tough time, man. I'm still having a tough time getting to Diggs, even though that ownership is what is he at right now? Last time I looked, it was pretty negligible.
Very low. Yeah, we have him sub 5% right now.
Are you doing it? Or is this a James Cook bounce back game after everybody jumped on board Cook last week?
So, I mean, he's still, I'll start with Cook. Things to like, he had 20 more carries in that game. Like, if you're going to get 20 carries a game from James Cook, that's really good stuff. He had a whopping 0 targets. That's not ideal. Really, really don't want that. He had the extremely rare, he wasn't a decimal back. He was beyond a decimal back. He had 70 yards rushing, but he only scored 6 points because he fumbled once. So I don't even know what that means. I think James Cook is fine. Absolutely. Definitely can play him. I think he's got touchdown equity. We know Josh Allen is a threat on the ground, but it's not the same as Hurts in some instances. Like, Cook will get his shots. I think Diggs is still a fascinating tournament play. You're talking about a receiver who, yes, it's been ugly this year. There's no denying that, but I still think that Stefon Diggs has, a $150 and 2 in there. I really do. Like, I think you're incurring a ton of risk. The opportunity cost is massive, but the reward is massive. Everyone, including me, if you said AJ Brown or Diggs, I would say Brown. I just would, and I think everyone would.
Is Diggs one of your favorite leverage spots on the week, though?
So the good thing about it is that the answer can be yes, and you don't need a lot. So it's like, you don't need 40%. Like, you can get 12% Diggs and have like 4x the field.
What about Diggs? What about Diggs in single entry contests like the Spy or the Red?
Exactly. I think it's even better there. That could be. I like when, and again, we talk about this on our podcast exclusive. You can always check that out. I like when my quote unquote leverage or stand is one of my best players. Like, sometimes you say, like, what's your path to victory? And it's like, oh, I need, the backup running back on this team to score twice at 0.2%. And it's like, great, he gets 3 touches. What's your path to victory? I need Stefon Diggs to go crazy. That sounds pretty good to me.
That is a good point. Yeah. Valid point. Very valid. If Stefon Diggs is the guy at 3.5% ownership in single entry that goes nuts, and I'm not saying like, oh, you get an Amari Cooper game from last week, right? But last week, I had Amari Cooper in the Spy specifically, right? The $100 single entry. And I knew that, all right, I'm going to cash this now because I had him with Flacco. Did I hope for more? Sure. I think like 250 ROI or something, which is fine. And it was like 250 on $100 entry, whatever. Could it have been better? Yeah, obviously, when you have that stack. But what happens in an event like that is that you are now, Ben, when it comes to the rest of the field, 9% Amari Cooper, you are now playing against 9% of the field.
Exactly. Tournament within a tournament. Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you didn't have Amari Cooper, could you have cashed? Sure. You probably still could have cashed. But if you didn't have Amari Cooper with Flacco last week, what were your shots of winning a tournament?
Yeah, 0.
Yeah. So at that low ownership, if you have, let's say, a 40-point Diggs game and he goes crazy, and all of the other top-tier receivers, running backs, have decent but not great games, you might actually be playing against 3-4% of the field.
Yeah. And I don't expect that to happen, but it's all about the balance of if you get the outlier game, how big is the reward? I think it's pretty damn big with the ownership this low. So interesting tournament play. The risk is there though. And I think that's one I'm entertaining for sure.
We got 13 games, so we'll try and speed some of these up. Deuce Trey asks, who do we like in FanDuel lineups? Jordan, since we don't have a ton of time to go over everything, can you run the sims and just throw up some of the top simmed ROI lineups for FanDuel? That'd be great. Both.
Lineup generator.
You want to do lineup generator?
Yeah, I like that. I do that sometimes. I just spin the wheel.
Yeah, why not? Plus, it takes no time to get that set up. All right. Yeah, throw the lineup generator up on some of those. Any interest in Gabe Davis or any of these kind of peripheral options on Buffalo?
Not really. I mean, again, there's always it's a good offense overall, but Allen and Diggs, James Cook as a solo play is all I'm really looking at.
Let's talk about the Rams and the Giants. Rams 6-point road favorites. What are you doing here? I mean, Puka Nacua is expected to play, so we know that. But I'm not pulling a ton of exposure here. The only guy that I'm really getting much of, if any, 11% right now is Kyren Williams. And I like that. Kyren Williams, just absolute stud. He's priced where he should be now. He might even be a little bit underpriced. You could make the argument for how often he's on the field and how much he touches the ball. But I'm not really getting to the passing game this week. And I think a lot of that is probably just because Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp are similarly priced. They're both expensive, and trying to get that right has been pretty difficult.
Extremely difficult. And I'm not really messing around with that. We know they're big time players, but it's 13 games. There's dozens of big time players. Thing I like about Kyren, and then I'll pass it back to you. He can get you there in any way possible. So last 4 games, he scored in 3 of them. Well, that's a path to getting there. Last 5 games, he's got 5 or more targets in 3 of them. That's a way to get there. Last 4 games, he's got 20 or more carries in all of them. That's a way to get there. So even if something goes wrong, he's got 2 or 3 other ways to get you there. I think Kyren his price is just going to, I mean, it's the end of the year, but I think he could be honestly a $9,000 back.
Probably should be.
Crazy.
Probably should be. And I get it. He's very good and his volume is massive. They're almost touchdown favorites on the road. I get it. I do. Now, the other question becomes, what do you do with a guy like Tyrod Taylor on the, and are you going to the pass catchers for the Rams? Because right now it's not a spot I'm getting much of at all.
No, I'm not. And this has nothing to do with anything, but Kyren is on the very rare list of being, he started in the 4K range. He went from the 4s to the 5s to the 6s to the 7s to the 8s this year.
It's amazing, isn't it?
That's kind of wild.
A big game from Kyren Williams this week. He might close the season at 9K in week 18.
Yeah, he would complete the cycle.
Yeah.
That'd be nuts.
That'd be nuts. So like minimum salary up to basically as high as you get.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Man, I remember when FanDuel used to have capped salaries at 9,900. So like LeBron would be 9,900 and you just had to play him every single time. They got rid of that pretty quick. But yeah, I think on the other side, the question now becomes Tyrod Taylor. Do you want to get to him? Do you want to get to any stacks there? Wan'Dale Robinson's questionable, so we'll see if he plays. Darren Waller was the second fiddle to Bellinger last week. I mean, that's just gross. Jalen Hyatt may get a deep target or 2. Who knows? Would I still rather have Tyrod Taylor over Tommy DeVito? Absolutely. And Tyrod Taylor limits mistakes, but he has some rushing upside as well. It's still kind of tough though, because you're talking Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, Hyatt, and then you have Barkley, who if the game's close, they're just going to try and feed him to be anyway.
Yeah, I don't really like it. It's very difficult to decipher. Better one-offs like Wan'Dale and Saquon make sense at their price points, not tying it together with Tyrod though.
Goody with a super chat. Appreciate you, man. As always. Sorry, not a game specific. Oh man, the man of etiquette himself.
He knows.
Straying. 5 lineups in the millie. What's your favorite dart throw stack on DraftKings? Oh, that's a great question. Let me pull up the top stacks tool and just
mine's Tampa. I think that Tampa is an interesting against the grain stack today. He's got alphas. We know Evans is a stud. Godwin is there. Otten is there. White is there. not going to be a popular stack. I know New Orleans defense at times is good, but they're on the road. I think Tampa's a sneaky stack today.
I'll give you something even bigger though. Who has shut down Mike Evans every single time he's faced him?
Lattimore.
Lattimore's out. Yeah. So I don't know if he's confirmed out. Last I looked, he wasn't expected to play. But yeah. So that's interesting. I like it. I was trying to see what the ownership on Arizona was, like the stack, because I do think it's a dart throw. Yes, I Arizona would be mine.
Okay. Yeah, that's another like super low owned stack.
You know why I like it? Because the McBride attachment isn't too expensive and Kyler's not too expensive, but then that second attachment in a double stack is dirt cheap no matter where you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get him.
I know Eric will tell you later in the live before lock that Jared Stidham stacks against the Chargers are his. I don't think it's crazy, but
No, it's not crazy.
You have no Marvin Mims. You're not expected to have Mims, so it's like you're banking on Jerry Jeudy as your number one here. You know, it could just be a monster Javonte Williams game and everything else goes out the window. But appreciate you, Goody. Are you getting the pieces from the Giants? Because a lot of times these cheap receivers give us a lot, but we've got 13 games and a lot of cheap wide receivers to choose from elsewhere.
Yeah, Wandale. I think he's absolutely fine today. Slayton, we saw him catch the 70-yard bomb finally. I prefer Wandale. Flat 4. I think that's just a fine pay down option.
Okay. Want to move it on?
Yeah, let's do it.
We got the Saints and the Tampa Bay Bucks. Kamara with an illness, another illness, expected to play. I honestly think, and I'd love to hear if you feel differently, Kamara to me feels like probably the toughest, higher priced running back to get to, maybe of all of them this week.
Not just the opportunity cost, which I mentioned, I think is immense. His role is not solidified whatsoever. I'm not doing it. If he beats me and someone hero calls that, more power to you. You still have the 15 to 20 touch upside. There's so many other backs I'd rather play.
Me too. Would you rather play? And we're almost at 400 likes, so appreciate you guys.
I didn't even.
What's that?
I have 18 on my screen. I never refresh.
You have to refresh it. We're at 398. I bet by the time I refresh this, we will be at 400. So thank you guys.
I just refreshed it.
We'll keep
399.
400 now. I refreshed twice.
Okay.
Keep it coming, fellas. Little new year, little happy new year for us here. 1,000 may be difficult. You made a good point.
I said
that, people might not be around. I get it. Maybe fewer people watching than usual. But if you haven't done so yet, atone for your sins. Yeah, lift that burden from their shoulders and go on about your day, feeling like a new man. Mm-hmm. Hey, here's the thing. Kamara or Jonathan Taylor?
Taylor.
Kamara or Rashad White?
Kamara.
Okay.
Not because I think, just to be clear, I think Rashad White outscores Kamara a ton, but I think if one guy went absolutely nuts, it would be Kamara.
Ceiling game. Yep. Kamara or Travis Etienne at home without Lawrence?
Etienne.
Okay. And then Kamara or James Cook?
Cook, but it's really close.
Okay. What about pass catchers from the Saints game?
So yeah, I mean, again, I think the Saints, we've seen Tampa's secondary has been just dismantled at times. Shaheed, he had 9 targets in that last game. It's just been a lot of like moving parts, though. Guys are in and out of these lineups. You're looking at price points. Olave, of course. He's been awesome, and he saw the targets against the Rams. I like him. I'm not saying I'm bringing together necessarily with a car stack, but one-off pieces, particularly if you go Buck stack, yeah, I think both Shaheed and Olave have some interest for me.
Crazy car coming off a game that we never would have expected either.
Your boy. Go to car today. Be dangerous.
I don't know if I want to. I don't think I will. Let's see how much I'm getting. I like doing this. I like going in blind to this show and looking at what exposures I'm getting in the Sims. I'm getting 5% Derek Carr stacks. That's not crazy. Right? It's not nuts. It's not nothing. And then as far as the team goes, I'm getting 19% Olave, Ben, just not much anywhere else. 5% Carr, 3% Alvin Kamara, 1% Rashid Shaheed.
That's fair. Yeah, again, I think I like Shaheed a little more than that, but I'm basically in line with what we're saying there.
Now the Bucks, you feel a little bit different. I really do think the absence of Lattimore makes a big difference for Mike Evans.
Yeah, it makes him less likely to get ejected, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So
But Lattimore has shut him. He's like his kryptonite, whether it's getting him ejected or just shutting him down, which is the reason he gets ejected. You know that's true. Like,
yeah,
he gets
there's
frustrated
something
and
to
then they
that.
fight.
I like I said, I think the Bucks are an interesting against the grain stack. You've got Baker at a price point that's reasonable. He threw the ball 35 times in a dominant win, which was kind of good to see. It doesn't mean he's going to get game scripted out if that happens. You know Evans is going to get his shots. Godwin has really been strong. He's got double-digit targets in 3 straight games. You've got a punt option with Otten, and then you've got Rashad White, who I know every week it seems like I'm hating on. I'm not. I'm a huge fan of him. He's got 20 plus carries in 4 straight games. He gets a lot of targets. He's super solid. I still don't know though how often as that price increases on a 13 game slate he hits that ceiling. So he's definitely in play. But I think for me the passing game for Tampa is very interesting.
Well, I do wonder when we get to this Tennessee game right now, how much Tennessee are you getting to with Chig? Chig is you jumped off at the wrong time.
Shocking.
You jumped off at the wrong time. Chigakonkwu had been, we've been kind of riding that, like, hey, this guy's good. It can happen. And then Tannehill comes in, has just a largely terrible game. They should have won that game. They should have won that game against Seattle, found a way to squander it late. They're 4-point dogs. CJ Stroud's back with the Texans. 44-point total, though. Will Levis is back at quarterback. What about Chig? What about DeAndre Hopkins? Like, I don't think Derrick Henry is necessarily a viable approach here. I said last time, a couple weeks ago, that they faced Houston. It's like, man, Derrick Henry looks pretty good. They're at home. I think he finished with 6 yards on 16 carries or something ridiculous. I'm not going back to the well there this week. I am going to have some Chig. I am going to have some Hopkins, though. I don't want to say this is going to be a sneaky shootout game, but you are getting in on these guys at a price point that's pretty palatable, right? I mean, like Gerald Everett with the Chargers is another cheap tight end with no Keenan Allen, with no Josh Palmer. He might be the top target because outside of him, it's what? Jalen Guyton and Quentin Johnson, who's done nothing. Austin Eckler has been ineffective for, well over a month now. So looking at Chig at $3,600, Hopkins at $6K flat. I know it's a 13-game slate. I'm not sleeping on those guys, though, only because I think they could be put in the situation where they have to throw. And you mentioned for the past month that you thought Houston in many aspects, specifically on defense, was kind of a paper tiger and that we were going to see them, fold at some point. Well, last week they got just shit on, right? And is Joe Flacco, comeback player of the year for sure. Get Hamlin out of there at this point, right? Welcome back, fella. Nice to see you. Glad you're okay. But it's Joe Flacco's award at this point. He's closing the gap on an award that we thought was impossible to win for anybody else. But Flacco Cooper is different than Will Levis to DeAndre Hopkins or Chigakonkwu. I still think there is some value here as far as leverage is concerned.
I do too. You mentioned how I felt and feel about the Houston defense. It doesn't mean that I think you need to roll a ton to the Titans, but they're in play, and it's very simple for me. It's Jig and it's Hopkins. I'm not messing around. I think Tajay Spears is going to continue to take a real role in that backfield, not to make him playable, but yeah, I'll have some exposure to these guys, and I like it.
Would you double stack Will Levis? Because that's where I get a little nervous. I'm much more comfortable with just one-offs from Tennessee.
Probably not. I think if you're building a bunch of lineups, you have 100 lineups or something like that, I think you can have a handful of those and be fine. But no, it's not even close to a priority for me.
Okay. Also, keep an eye on some of these injuries for the Houston defense. A lot of guys with Q tags, a lot of guys out. So that could certainly make a difference here. No doubt. Am I getting any? I'm praying to God I'm not getting a lot of Will Levis doubles.
That's not going to factor in for me.
Okay. I have like 5% Will Levis. That's fine. It's super cheap. You're probably going to end up on some cheap stacks. Where are the cheap stacks that you end up on? Because there are a number of possibilities here.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think for me, I'd rather have like Tampa and teams like that as a pay down stack. Not that they're even that cheap, but yeah, it's not a week I would go. Even Denver. I think I might go to Denver before I would do this.
Okay. Matt Riley said Flacco hasn't played enough games. Neither has Hamlin. The whole defense is banged up, and he still can't get on the field. So, look, it doesn't matter. Who cares? It's a fucking subjective award. I'm just throwing it out there. And by the way, guys, wouldn't blame you for not wanting to play Tennessee. Sometimes these things are gross, but also I hate to be this guy. Sometimes you just have to trust the tools. Not many people wanted to go to CJ Stroud triples the week the week the Sims gave you tons of them, and they won somebody the millie and two other people 100K. Sometimes it's just the way the lineup works out. And also, you could see like negative player ROI on some of these guys, Ben, and not show up a lot, but then they still show up. One of those stacks would still show up as one of your best lineups, even if it's not something you're getting a lot of.
Absolutely. And there's something to that. This is an interesting spot for Houston. You definitely have got some options on the outside. And then you've got Singletary, who was just in the wrong game script completely last time out against Cleveland. Now, their Houston to me is maybe like the most middling team on this entire slate. I don't hate them. I don't love them. I like Dalton Schultz quite a bit, but there is McBride and Everett and some other guys that he's competing with. Not getting to the stack, but I do admit that there are pass catchers from Nico to Brown that you can look to if you want to go with Stroud.
Man, without Tank Dell and now you've got CJ Stroud back, I feel like you could see a monster Nico game.
He's priced for, no, I'm not going to say a monster game, but he's priced like he better have a pretty big game.
You're right. He's not cheap. He's what? He's in the 7Ks, right?
7,200.
Yeah, he's expensive for sure. I do like him though. I do. I think you're right though. Schultz is probably, if you're just picking off one guy, Schultz is probably the most realistic in a spot like this, given the salary, if you're trying to get exposure to this offense, if you're not stacking them.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. And Singletary I liked earlier in the week, but we've just had value open up. There's a lot opening up that Singletary might, for me, just kind of become a casualty of the slate.
And that's what happens with 13 games.
Yeah. Anybody else from this one? And favorite way to play Houston, Tennessee?
I think you could play the Texans defense. I know we don't mention defense a lot, but I think Tennessee's live to do a lot of things from really good to just absolutely horrendous. Favorite way to play this game is have one of the Titans pass catchers and maybe look to Schultz. It's a game that I won't have much exposure to on the whole.
I think it's fair to say that Houston could go nuclear or they could be a total letdown too, with CJ Stroud coming off a multi-week concussion injury.
That's what I mean. Both these teams, the range of outcomes is pretty big, which when you step back, if that's the case, makes for really interesting tournament plays, in terms of leveraging the game. But I don't really see it where I'm picking a piece from each and I'm moving on.
Okay, then what pieces are you taking from the Raiders outside of Zamir White? Because that's a team that didn't complete a pass in the second half of last game against Kansas City, but Zamir White looked very good and very competent on the ground and got an absolute shitload of work.
It's not, one thing I always look for is when a team institutes I'd say like an aggressive game plan and it works, because the incentive to change is minimal. They did something and it worked perfectly. Now, it was a bizarre game on many fronts, but Zamir White is going to be the most popular player on the slate. He's going to be pretty good. Now, to speak to the other side of it, we don't know a lot about this guy, but it seems like there's a chance that he's going to have to get there just on volume, and he's not going to factor into the receiving game. And that is always a concern, because if you don't score and you don't get a bonus, it's really hard to get there. Now, he had 22 for 145 and 0 last week against Kansas City, and he was great for a small slate. That would be a solid to, just decent performance on a 13-game slate. So he's going to have to find the end zone today.
He is going to have to find the end zone. Workload was incredible, though.
Yes. And he looked good. He just looked good, too.
Zamir White had more rushing yards last week than Josh Jacobs has had scrimmage yards in a game this season. He had more rushing yards in that last week than Jacobs has had in a single game with rushing and receiving combined this year.
Yeah. And it's, this is the type of guy, too. Like, if you can just get a couple of easy targets, like you get 3.5 points from the receiving game, that helps so much. Like that really just a little extra would be huge.
They also just didn't need to throw last week. Like the most routes run by anyone was 23 for Devontae Adams. Yeah. So I think if they do fall behind, and I do believe it's possible against Indy, I think this could be a game that's skewed towards Indy. I think you could see Zamir White still involved there. Obviously, Abdullah's the type of guy that could he get some work? I suppose it's possible. Yeah, he had 22% of snaps, but White was out there almost 80% of the time. I wouldn't be shocked if he saw the Josh Jacobs role in its entirety. So I'm not too worried about it, honestly. I think if things get out of control, remember, they were up by 2 scores because they had 2 defensive touchdowns against Kansas City, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if Zamir White is perfectly involved in the passing game as much as Jacobs ever would have been. And you're getting him at 5,100, right? So you're basically getting Josh Jacobs at 5,100. Let's just say they're the same back. If you assume that you're getting a Josh Jacobs role, 5,100 is just too cheap. He should be the highest owned player on the slate.
He's going to be. You're going to play him in cash. There's no doubt about it. Anytime you have a very popular play on a large slate, there's always some incentive to maybe construct differently. And that's the case. But like everybody, I think Zamir White is a fantastic play, obviously.
I am in large part fading the passing game here, though. I'm fading the passing game. There's too many other great games. There's too many other great options. I don't think I can do it with Aiden O'Connell at quarterback.
No, I'm not making that hero call. I will say, if the passing game somehow got there, you would be leveraging all over because it would probably really hurt White and you'd be killing a ton of lineups on top of having a 1% stack.
That is a good point. It's so tough to pull the trigger, though.
I don't know if you really need to do that. You could just fade White and say, I hope the stack goes crazy, because if the stack goes crazy, yes, you would have wanted it, but no one's getting there because of that. And you're killing the White teams anyway.
Well, yeah, I'll take it a step further. Just fade White and hope that the team does nothing.
That too. You also have that equity.
They're only a few weeks removed from a game where they scored 0 points at home.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not overly sold on it. Everyone, like I said, White is in a different situation.
What are you doing with the Colts now that Michael Pittman's expected back?
Yeah, they're another team. I kind of have them in that Houston bucket of like, there are some pieces, but price point wise, like he's still very expensive. He should be. He's a great player. Don't really love them though. I respect this Raiders defense. They've been doing some things lately. I know Kansas City's got some issues of their own, but I'm not really getting there. And I know we've spoken about, I feel like Jonathan Taylor's come up 5 times on this show already. And I get it because he is playable, but there's so many backs around him, from Etienne to Cook that we talked about, Saquon, Swift below him, Kyron, McCaffrey above him. Jonathan Taylor is not a priority by any stretch for me. I think he's playable, but he's not my favorite back at his price point.
He's not a priority for me either. And by the way, Jacoby Brissett is inactive. So we expected that to be the case. I like Jonathan Taylor because Zach Moss is out. And I think this game lines up better for Jonathan Taylor than last week did. Now, I know Jonathan Taylor was pretty popular last week against Atlanta. Atlanta really has not been bad against running backs. They also, the Colts fell behind super early. It is pretty discouraging that Taylor only saw 1 target, though, in that game. That kind of sucked. I think he could do damage on the ground at home as a 4-point favorite. I like Jonathan Taylor. Last question here, just to kind of solidify this. Where would you rank Pittman as far as wide receiver plays go today?
Way down there.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Just too many great options.
There's just so many options. Yeah, it's tough. Tough for me to get there.
Okay. Taylor for me is going to be Not a priority, but someone I'd like to get some. Michael Pittman, I have about 9% right now. Aside from that, I don't have anybody. Josh Downs' price point has come up with Pittman back too.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just use what I always do. It's perfect time. I said I was going to talk about this in the show, and then I got sidetracked. Like Pittman, I just pulled up Odd Shopper real quick just to see what does Vegas think. What are the books saying? Receptions prop at 6.5, and his yards prop is at 75.5. No glaring values there. It's about stagnant. I don't know at 75 if that's exactly where you want to be. So that's just another point. And obviously, again, if you're in one of those states and you get little opportunities to make some of these wagers, there are so many props on the board that are grading out as potentially profitable right now. Plus EV market-based approach. If you don't know what that means, go to Odd Shopper. Again, you don't even have to sign up yet. Just read about what we've got going on, learn about it. If you do want to sign up, the link is below. You're getting in our Discord. You're getting all the insider content. You get to talk to us, hang out with us, get those picks. And more importantly, you're getting all these tools. You get to see how the market works, see where the edges are. You don't have to do all this digging for yourself. But I think just looking at Pittman specifically, if they, I don't see anything in those lines that make me think at 75, this is a spot that is worth attacking. I don't see any like glaring upside either.
Agreed. And I don't want to be this guy, but the reemergence of a concussion or one tough tackle, Pittman might be out for the game after missing that last week after he was good and then not good again the day before the game.
There's just a lot of the, again, this was a 3-game Saturday slate. Of course, he would be probably one of the priorities, but it's not. It's a 13-game slate.
Yeah, but here's the great thing. When it comes to betting, you can jam unders on spots like that if there's good value, right? Our EV tool, where we're just literally using the market to beat the market and grind out a win consistently, grind out profits. We're finding the true odds on these, right? We're using the sharp sports books, comparing them to a lot of these retail books. Now you want to be on a bunch of books, but they're all giving you sign-up bonuses anyway, so you take advantage of it. And you find the plus EV plays, you lock them in, and you make money doing so. So if you guys are into betting, outside of just DFS, we have the parlay builder too. So if you're in a slightly different approach, take it more of like a DFS tournaments approach, we have the parlay builder, which is giving you plus EV parlays, all of that stuff at an awesome price, man. So check it out. Join the Discord, get in on the plus EV picks, start building your bankroll that way. Link in the description and in chat. And if you ever have any questions, hit us up. My DMs are open. You can always find Ben on Twitter or in the Discord anywhere. We'd be happy to walk you guys through it. People have been taking me up on that when I say, DM me on the Sims tool, getting a lot of questions every day. And I love it because people want to learn how to use these tools, understanding that that's the direction, DFS is taking. And happy to answer. Yeah. And this is the direction that betting is taking too, the plus EV approach. So
no doubt, This is something, I'll just tell you this, when we do this show next year, we're talking about 2025, plus EV betting is going to be a household term. So if you don't know exactly what that is, if you said, I've seen this, it's popping up more and more on my Twitter feed, heard about Odd Shopper, I never took the time, I'm telling you, take a couple minutes, tweet us, message us in Discord. Let's talk about it because you're not going to want to be late to this type of mentality. And our tools are ahead of the game right now. I really believe that. And we've seen the results.
Without question. So yeah, we'd love to have you guys over there. Carolina, Jacksonville. I don't have much for Carolina this week. No. Do you go to Chuba? Do you go back to Chuba Hubbard? Do you go to Adam Thielen or any of these guys? Mingo. It's a tough day to get excited about them. For what it's worth, Jacksonville has looked terrible. They've just looked like a horrible. I think they've lost 4 straight games. Panthers defense might be the spot I get to here.
I do have a little Panthers defense. I almost have nothing from this game, though. I have Panthers defense and ETN.
ETN is the most interesting part of this entire game to me. I really think that ETN is like the biggest boomer bust option today. And it's a Doug Peterson offense, a team too. So it's like, does he just go pass heavy regardless of whether, because CJ Beathard's in there, or does Travis Etienne finally get the game script we were looking for, and he sees 25 touches in a spot like this, Ben, and they blow the doors off Carolina at home in an absolute must-win game for the Jacksonville Jaguars? I don't know the answer to this, and nobody does. But Travis Etienne feels like he should be 6,500. He feels like he should be, you talked about it. You're like, a lot of these 7K guys, you could swap their prices with the 6K guys and no one would bat an eye, right? I think there's an argument to be made here that Travis Etienne is a little bit overpriced. Carolina's defense really hasn't been playing all that poorly. So if I had to give you an answer, I probably get to less Etienne than I would like, because I don't want to let my head get in the way of what makes the most sense.
Yeah, again, I feel the same way. There's unknowns that I don't think we're going to know till we see it, and that always breeds some interest. For me, Etienne's a talented player. Like I said, there's not going to be a lot of ownership. This is almost in the Diggs category for me, where I'm like, there's so many red flags, but I know that Etienne can do it. I'm positive of that. He gets a lot of work. I respect Carolina's defense. I think this is an ugly game, probably the worst game to stack on the board. Still a couple plays, Panthers D and Etienne for me.
Josh asks, in the finals in my work league, should I start Achane or Mixon? I would go Achane. Ben might feel differently because he's a Mixon guy, but I would go Devon Achane.
I am a Mixon guy. I do think it's a little more complicated. I would say, all things considered, Achane. If I thought my team was dominantly better,
you go for the floor play?
Yeah, I go with Mixon.
The higher floor play, I mean.
Yeah.
The totals right now for the Bengals is 19.5. What's the total for Miami? 22. No Waddle. I'd lean Achane. I do think it's close. I do. I'd lean Devon Achane. Anyway, anything else for the Jags?
No.
Hard to love the passing game here. Zay Jones is questionable too, by the way.
Just not anything I have interest in, honestly.
Okay. All right. So then how about this? Your favorite play from Carolina, Jacksonville?
Panthers defense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
They're very cheap.
Me too. I'm getting very little of this game. My highest exposed piece of this game is actually Carolina defense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. I do.
Atlanta, Chicago. All right.
Just
there's
keep going.
You can't. We can't do that. Live before lock coming up after this, by the way, 11:45 Eastern. We're going to have the inactives report in just a couple minutes. So that should enlighten us a little bit here. Although there are some questionable spots heading into this wave of 4 p.m. games. Wait, is Chicago a 4 p.m. game?
No.
So we only have 3 of them on a 13-game slate. Wow. All right. Big early wave.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
No real, the early slate this week is larger than the entire slate last week.
Yeah, that's very shady.
All right. Atlanta doesn't have any notable injuries. Bijan, fuck, man. I remember last week I was like, I'm not getting to a ton of Bijan this week. I ended up getting to some, and I ended up getting to a good amount of Breece Hall as well. It just so happened that in all of my Flacco Cooper lineups, also that had Amon-Ra St. Brown, they had Bijan over Breece. It just played out that way. And you know what? Sometimes you can't predict the future. I had a ton of Breece. It just happened that he wasn't in any of my great Flacco and Cooper lineups, Ben. But I have a tough time rolling the dice again on Bijan this week. 38-point total. Outside of the dome, you're talking Chicago, Soldier Field. I don't know what the weather or the temperature is going to be. I assume it's not perfect. 37 degrees, 12 mile per, whatever. I don't have much Atlanta.
Neither do I. And I've been on Atlanta a lot this year. The stacks have graded out really well in the Sims. I was on crazy Atlanta stacks last week, and they weren't terrible. They just weren't enough. Like Pitts scored, and then Chig scored. Bijan was fine, and then Breece Hall went nuclear. Drake London was straight bad. It's easier for me this week. I don't have any interest in Atlanta. I just don't.
You know, it sucks is that Algier had that long touchdown, that like a 20-yard touchdown.
Yeah, that was just a mess. And the problem with Algier is he doesn't get enough work to be playable, in my opinion, but he does enough to screw everything else up.
Yeah. He's the thorn in your side.
He's like Spears to a lesser extent.
Yep.
Yeah.
They scored 29 points. Bijan had 10 targets. It could have gone a long way for us, and it didn't. And that's okay. I'm out on the Falcons for the most part. If you had to pick one guy, who is it?
Oh, it's still Bijan just because I believe in that talent. If you're going to get 10 targets, he can do it. But again, you're asking yourself not to beat, oh, Bijan just has to beat Swift and we're good. He's got to beat about 10 backs within $500, and a lot of them are in good spots. So you really need to be careful when you're looking at running back this week. It's a super high opportunity cost.
Can I rapid fire a couple of these guys at you
Sure.
real quick in the 6K range? All right. And feel free to just say, I don't really like either. Bijan or Mixon?
It would be Bijan, but again, it's very difficult. That's a coin toss. You say rapid fire, I take 5 minutes on the first.
That's okay. All of these guys are within $300 of each other, either 300 above Bijan or below. Bijan or Swift? I know it's Swift for you.
Swift, definitely.
Bijan or Eckler?
Bijan. I don't like Eckler this week.
But I don't like really either of them. I'd probably go Bijan. Bijan or Achane. For me, it's Achane at the same price. Okay. Bijan or Pacheco?
I mean, it's a concussion. It should be Pacheco should be all systems go here. I would say Pacheco, but it's still the Chiefs.
Two more, Bijan or Barkley?
Oh, Saquon.
Easy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Bijan or Derrick Henry, it's going to be Bijan.
Bijan. But out of all those running backs that you just named, Swift and Saquon are so much further ahead of most of them.
I was thinking that's the way you'd answer, and I agree with you. Yep. All right. Next game. Oh, no. Chicago, real quick. No Darnell Mooney. Cole Kmet's questionable. He's going to test his knee out. So that is actually something we should pay close attention to. DJ Moore coming off a really underwhelming game. But on the season, you're still talking about a guy that could finish with 1,300 receiving yards and what? Double-digit touchdowns. So I don't want to just ignore this altogether. He's coming off two ugly games, one against Cleveland in Cleveland. Last week, no excuses against the Arizona Cardinals. But what are you doing with DJ Moore and Justin Fields today in a low total game where we could also be without Cole Kmet, already without, to a lesser extent, Darnell Mooney, but they could get real thin in the passing game?
So Kmet is ruled inactive. So not he's inactive. No, I'm sorry. I said that horribly. He's been ruled active.
You said he's ruled inactive. Okay.
Inactive. Okay. I'm just an idiot.
Gotcha. Yeah. That changes things for me.
That does. It would have made.
That's crazy. I think when did that news drop?
I think pretty damn recently.
It was. It was less than a minute ago. Okay, so go ahead. While I was talking, I think.
Exactly. That makes someone like Tanya not play. He would have been as a pay down tight end. I think the most interesting guy in the Bears, I'm not saying he's my favorite play from the Bears, but what do you make of Khalil Herbert?
I knew you were going there.
20 for 112 and a couple targets. I think that's very interesting. It also, I'm not going to say it kills Fields because Fields still had 97 yards rushing. Fields is going to do what he does. But Herbert, maybe of all these if you really are going to pay down at running back and you want to pivot off White, maybe it's Herbert.
I personally can't do it. And it's only because the issue that I've had here is the Bears each week. I feel like each time I feel like I'm getting my finger on the pulse of how this backfield is going to function the following week, I'm wrong. You know, I think, Roschon Johnson, a lot of opportunities. Snap share was up. Khalil Herbert coming back from the IR in those following weeks, didn't do much. D'Onta Foreman inactive. Perfect spot for Roschon Johnson. And I got a little bit of him last week as a result. It ended up being Khalil Herbert. So if I think it's Khalil Herbert this week, it's going to be Johnson. So I'm having a really tough time there trying to figure out in the 38 total game where the run game has been just no real rhyme or reason week over week. I don't think I'm going to do it.
I don't think I'm going to do it either. And that's just a product. Again, I know I've said this a lot, but it is true. There's just so many games and so many options. I don't see the need to do that.
Right. By the way, Josh Jacobs is out and Hunter Henry is out.
Okay. That makes me like Douglas a little more. Sure.
Makes me like Parker more too at 3,600 little ownership.
Yep.
So, yeah. Look, it's not a fun team, but if you're Juju's out, Henry's out, you got to throw somewhere. And if they're 14-point dogs, you might just see it on volume alone. Anyway, I do kind of like the Fields more skinny stack today, Ben. That would be my favorite spot in Chicago. For Fields, DJ Moore skinny stack coming off a bad couple weeks for Moore. Wouldn't be surprised if he has a big game here and people are underweight on this spot.
I have no problem. Listen, Fields, I think you know by now, I'm a huge Justin Fields fan. I think he's a very difficult player to project. And at times he doesn't get as much as he deserves ownership wise, and that's a good thing.
We have Fields around 2%. We have Fields at 7. To me, that looks nice.
That's very playable. I might do that.
I know, right? And
Do you think you'll bring it back with anyone?
I don't know if I need to.
No, you definitely don't need to. I just like that's where Bijan could weasel his way in. I think I'm not going to do that though.
Not do what? Play Fields
Play any run back on
yeah.
Atlanta.
I might not. I think I would be perfectly content with Fields, DJ Moore.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, we have 3,400 people watching. Is it possible with 657 likes to hit 1,000? 3,400 people.
What do we have?
We have 657.
Yeah, why not? Thought I was gonna say no. I did a double reverse.
We need 340. If there's 340 people,
I think we can do it. That's 1/10 of the population.
Yeah, on New Year's Eve, who are who think today's the day they want to be kind. Help us get
last
there,
chance to hit the like in 2023.
Oh, I like that lean. I like that read.
Hey.
That's solid. Yeah, that's a good pitch.
Yeah.
What would you put the actual odds at to get there? It's obvious plus money.
I don't know about that. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it within a couple. We only have a couple minutes left, so we're gonna need one push right now, or the odds are gonna move in real time to like plus 250.
Yeah, this is like the live odds on a game where
exactly.
You bet a team at like they're -5 still, even though they're down a touchdown because they're the favorite, and then they allow 2 touchdowns in a row, and now it's dead.
Yeah, we did
hammer it again.
I know we have a couple games left, but I do want to get to your boy Yamahama 190, his first super chat ever. Very generous. We appreciate it. Happy New Year. Best of luck to you in 2024, my friend.
Thanks, brother.
And we had one more. James said 3,800 or under for a wide receiver. How many cheapies in one lineup? It would be Wilson for me from the Dolphins, but you can do a couple if you want to say like I'm going to be very different and construct like a McCaffrey Tyreek. You can do that and double punt. I'm not doing that, but there are cheapies available.
Steelers and Seahawks. I don't have anything
to get there.
I don't really have anything from the Steelers at all.
Neither do I. We saw Pickens score on like a 90-yard touchdown.
Twice.
Yeah, if he does, it's just like there's not much to say. The running game is a mess. I don't trust the passing game. They're in Seattle. I actually kind of like the Seahawks in the game. Not getting to a lot here.
You said you like Seattle in the game?
I do. I haven't bet it yet, but I might.
I do too. I grabbed it at 4. I'm not sure what it's at now, but this is one of those spots where like Pittsburgh coming off of a good win, grab the Seahawks at 3.5. I mean, Seahawks coming, nice. Steelers coming off a big win, but this team, like every time you think they figured it out or you think they're bad, the opposite happens. Traveling to Seattle, I'm just not convinced that. I'm not at all convinced that the Steelers hang here. Some real worries about Mason Rudolph just becoming flat out bad again. So yeah, the only way I would play this would be maybe just very little exposure to some Seahawks like double stacks or something in the event that this Pitt defense folds again, just completely folds in upon themselves. But I don't have a lot of this game at all.
Neither do I. And again, you can do that because we've got some big time receivers on the outside. I just think that you can make that case with 5 or 6 or 7 teams today. And it's hard to say that Seattle's the one. And the prices come down on a guy like Lockett and Metcalf, but it's still not cheap. It's still not cheap. So it's a tough sell for me.
BD said the lineup generator loves Carr and Swift for me for whatever it's worth. Okay. Yeah, and the cool thing about the lineup generator is you can discard the lineups you don't want, save the ones you do, upload them to CSV. And then after you save all, or after you keep all the ones you like, you can see all of your exposures and all of your stack exposures. And for showdowns, you can actually adjust projections. So like if you thought a couple of weeks ago that the Raiders could come out and just smoke the Chargers, you can adjust them up and the Chargers down, and you'll get lineups built for that. And then you can rerun it again where you play it differently. And then just, consolidate all of those lineups, the ones that you like the most. It's pretty neat. It's a really cool feature. And for the price, you're getting in at a good one. All right, let's go. 2 games to go. Cincinnati and Kansas City. Jamar Chase is expected to play, Ben. They're 6.5-point dogs. We're 7.5 points. So this moved through 7. I don't know how much the Chase news had to do with this, but 44-point total. How much Cincinnati are you getting to? Because to me, it's not a mixing spot personally. I hope I'm right. And then now that you've got Jamar Chase back, you also have T. Higgins. And I mean, Tanner Hudson doesn't feel like a great spot there. Tyler Boyd, since he's a relatively difficult spot on a 13-gamer for me to play heavily.
Yeah, I still think that despite all the issues, the Chiefs defense has been persistently solid. Really,
Dude, the Raiders at 14 points defensively and moved the ball 0% of the time on offense last week.
That's what I mean. So it's not like, oh, there's these glaring problems. So no, I don't really see the need to do that. I will put him in the Diggs bucket for sure. Jamar Chase is a great player. And he's not going to be even remotely popular. It's a big risk. I think it's as risky as it gets, but I always think there's some merit to consider that stuff because you need like one share of him to get over.
Any Mixon, any Higgins, anybody else?
Nope.
What about the Kansas City side? Because this is one where it's funny because I know you were very much high on Kansas City, not as like, oh, I love my favorite stack ever, but more so like a leverage play. But it appears that you were, it's tough to say because they're not going to be unowned and they're not cheap because Rashee Rice is expensive now. Travis Kelce is expensive still.
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes is still expensive. And then outside of that, your only other pieces, if you're stacking, guys like Justin Watson, Kadarius Toney's out, Sky Moore's on the IR. So there are ways to play that. But Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice are the two clear top options here. It took us a lot of the season to finally, the dust to settle. But Rashee Rice might be the number one on the team right now as far as target shares goes.
Yeah, I mean, that's just something that I still think you can look to because there's a big opportunity for the Chiefs to get it done at home. I know that they've struggled. I wish they were lower on, like crazy low on, but I still think there is an opportunity to get the Mahomes stack and think that it works. Is it my favorite on the slate? No, it's not. But there's 6.5 point, like all the stuff that's already happened doesn't factor into what the line is now. Like it's already in there. The Chiefs are a 6.5 point favorite and a 44-point total at home today. If you think that's horrible and they're completely cooked, I would go to the window and bet Cincinnati. Like I don't believe that. I think that the Chiefs are going to be just fine today. And for that reason, I think that Mahomes and the pass catchers are in play.
I'll take it a step further. I don't really think it matters. I don't think it matters if you think the Chiefs are cooked because it's DFS and you could be wrong. Like, you know what I mean? We're talking about a scenario here where if you're right, okay, that's great. But even if you think the Chiefs are cooked, do you really want to not have any of the Chiefs when you have the potential for the Mahomes, Kelce, Rashee Rice type of game? I don't have a ton of them right now, but I do still have a good amount of Travis Kelce. I think I'll tell you right now, as far as stack exposures, I still have about 7% Patrick Mahomes stacks, and it makes sense to me. Plus, the Bengals are coming off a game where they got blown apart by Mason Rudolph and George Pickens. Let's not ignore that either.
Yep, absolutely. Again, I see the angles for it. I'm gonna have some. I'm gonna take that shot on some of these teams. Other than that, though, again, it's not the best game environment out there. I don't think it's one that's gonna make or break me, to be honest.
Right. All I'm saying is, and it looks like a lot of chat agrees. The thing I love about this show and the thing I love about the chat is that, like, as you and I do the podcast exclusive stuff in the videos and we learn stuff and how the game is evolving and how DFS is evolving, everyone's just right with us on this stuff. And I think the mindset of a lot of people, I see the DFS community is so much smarter than the sports betting community.
That's a fact.
Right? I'm not lying, right? Like hold on a second. And that's not a knock. What I'm saying
it's a newer industry. That's why.
Exactly. It's not a knock. We're so much further along.
Yep.
We're so much further along. Like most people don't even know what plus EV betting is. So
Think about the beginning of DFS. No one was thinking about ownership. No one
yeah,
thought. Now it's second nature, but there was a time where no one even considered that.
but man, the people making transitions from DFS over to sports betting in a lot of cases are going to have, in my opinion, a real leg up just understanding how these things work.
Definitely. Same concepts.
All I'm saying though is I think the Eagles are super dysfunctional, and I think it's a real problem. I think it's a real problem for the Chiefs too. Ben made the Chiefs the Goblin of the Week like 2 weeks in a row. It doesn't mean we're not playing them this week. That's all. That's all. Anyway, you ready to wrap this up with Chargers in Denver?
Sure. We did have one last super chat. Who would you leave out between Saquon, Zamir White, Achane, and Swift? Those are all great plays. I would leave Achane out though.
Okay. So the LA Chargers, I'm still getting to a lot of Gerald Everett, and quite frankly, I don't have an issue with it. It's a bad team. Easton Stick is their quarterback, but Everett is, 3 straight games with 8 targets. Not only that, he's going to be on the field a lot. No Keenan Allen, no Josh Palmer. Austin Eckler's become a ghost. Quentin Johnston has thus far been a bust. I'm not declaring him a bust, but this season he has not been good. Jalen Guyton, even though they're running him out of the slot a decent amount, still a burner. I do think Gerald Everett is the best skill play from the Chargers, and I have a decent amount, and I'm okay with that.
Same. Feels a good price point at a position that I'm not too worried about getting rid of. Other than that, though, I don't really have that much. We know it's beyond a lost season, just a disaster there. I don't want to allocate salary to this team.
I will allocate salary to the other side, though. I will allocate Jerry Jeudy in a few lineups, a little bit there, even with Jared Stidham at quarterback. If I'm right, and the Chargers did have a true dead cat bounce last week, right? True dead cat bounce after the horrible Thursday night game against the Raiders. They get rid of Staley. They fight against Buffalo, but still lose, which means like this could be the week that the wheels completely fall off. Then I do think Stidham could be fine and Jeudy could be fine. Marvin Mims isn't expected to play. Cortland Sutton's already out. So yes, a little bit of Jared Stidham stacking with a super cheap offense. And I like Javonte Williams as well. I think Javonte Williams is in a great spot on volume alone. And Broncos defense. So I don't actually hate the Broncos. To close this show, I'll say getting some pieces of the Broncos, be it Williams, Jeudy, some Stidham, Broncos defense, even a little Brandon Johnson. I think it's all actually pretty viable.
It's definitely viable. I'd rather have pieces than the totality of the team. I'm not really looking to pay down a quarterback, to be honest. So you can punt with a guy like Johnson. You can go get Javonte. I think he'll be busy. Everett's my favorite play from the game. Broncos defense as well. Very solid.
All right. Hey, follow Ben at Jazzraz DFS. Fun show, man. Not bad for timing on 13 games. I was aiming for 45.
We did our best. I know we're going to be getting out of here. Of course, everybody. Hey, just be safe tonight. Have fun. It's been a hell of a year here at Stochastic. Appreciate everyone. We're going to have an amazing 2024, but just everyone have fun tonight. Enjoy yourselves. Thanks for hanging out with us every Sunday. It's been a great year.
If you drive, don't get caught.
Yeah, don't be stupid.
I'm kidding. Don't drive drunk.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Just have fun tonight, though.
For a reason. All right. Moving Minnesota with a late super chat. Happy New Year. Thanks, guys. You too. Have a great New Year for real. Like Ben said, have fun, be safe. Watch this stupid fucking ball drop. It's the dumbest thing in the world. I have no interest in it. It's so dumb. The first time I saw it, I thought it was going to just like come plummeting down, explosions and rockets go off and fireworks. Stupid. Anybody, Goblin of the Week is going to be anybody that stands out at Times Square and pisses in their pants to watch a ball drop and bad music, right?
Very, very bad. We have one last super chat from True Rages. Yeah, I think that lineup looks fine. I think Slayton's probably the riskiest piece of it for cash, but I don't see any glaring issues.
All right. Thanks, guys. You are the best. Follow me at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D on the Twitters. DMs are always open. You have questions about any of our tools or whatever. Owner's box still not even close to filled, so jump in if you're not there yet. And if you're not rocking the Stochastic Hall of Fame avatar, my friends, why not get inducted into the Hall of Fame? Why not get a free month, $200 value of anything you want simply by going to stochastic.com/avatar, downloading it wherever it is you play, DraftKings, FanDuel, Owner's Box, and upon doing so, Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Whether it's a nickel entry or $20 does not make a difference. Tweet your wins. It's Stochastic HOF. Get in on the action. Everything for free. Inducted into the Hall of Fame. And hopefully we'll see you guys at the top of the leaderboards. My friends, Matt Gajewski, Eric Lindquist coming up next. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Luffy. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to NFL Live Before Lock, presented by Owner's Box. Happy New Year's Eve to everybody. Smash the like button. Looks like you guys did a phenomenal job getting that thing north of 1K as Matt and I jump in. That would be much appreciated. Much appreciated. We got Jordan Klein producing here. He's having a great morning. Look how happy and cheery and bushy-tailed and happy. Good morning. Yeah, okay. He's thrilled with life.
I couldn't tell if you were talking about me or Jordan Klein. You were talking about Jordan Klein for a second, then you said he. So I didn't know if that was me or him. But yeah, man, I am doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. That's Matt Gajewski, Matt_Gajewski. Nothing like ending the new year on a high note here with the
You didn't say my name. You said Jordan Klein's name, and then you said he.
Well, I was just watching Jordan. Here's the thing. People don't understand this. Sometimes Jordan Klein, he's like a wild animal out there. He's just out there. Just can't really tell what he's up to from time to time. I just can't. I never know what he's doing. Anyway, let's get ourselves going here. Good start. Yeah, there he was. That was him. He's got some mean stuff in NBA. We're going to just start the show here because I don't really want to get into that right now here. We are ready to rock. That's for sure. Got some actives and inactives we're going to cover. And then we're going to go position by position like we always do. The guys did a great job covering everything, the ins and outs, a marathon show for them here on this massive 13-game slate we have before us. But in terms of inactives and actives, things to kind of recap for the people. Hunter Henry is going to be out. Not really sure that does a ton for me, considering it's pretty diluted at the tight end position there. I mean, if you want to get to a share of Gajewski, a share of Pharaoh Brown, such is life. But, you know, tight end, there's at least some mid-tier guys that I think you kind of want to be cycling through here as we look at the Sims tool. And then something that just happened again here just right before we came on. Deonta Foreman, he's now inactive here for this one. The Roschon Johnson thing from last week, it didn't completely burn you. He put up nearly 10. He was cheap, but now he's up a little bit more expensive. And now Khalil Herbert, well, that's the guy that I just ended up jamming from a prop perspective there. 27.5 rushing yards. I feel really good about that because, well, 41.5 was the number that you were looking at for Foreman for this game. So I got to think that a lot of that work goes there. That's got to be the most positive EV ticket that I've had in a long while. But what else stood out to you here for the actives and actives, and anything else that you really want to talk about before we get to quarterback?
Yeah, it's really just the two you mentioned. Hunter Henry doesn't really affect my tight end pool as much, but it does change like Pop Douglas's projection a little bit. And he was already projecting really well. And a player that I didn't have a lot of interest in, but now I think we at least need to consider him a little bit more. So moving parts with the New England pass game. And then Foreman, you're going to get better projections on the Chicago backs. I think it might be worth gambling on in certain situations, but I don't have confidence in who it's going to be. It's changed week in and week out. So maybe you get the hot hand and you run hot yourself on who you pick out of the Chicago backfield, but those are really the only two that were unexpected this morning. A couple on defense, like Kyle Hamilton being out, I think that one is a little more interesting from a game stacking perspective. The ton of money came in on the under overnight on that particular game, Miami-Baltimore. And now you just removed arguably your best defender and certainly your best secondary piece and your best cover guy for that Baltimore secondary. So I don't know, maybe there's a little more juice towards the over in that game, but that's about it.
Yeah, maybe a little freak in our lives. Get freaking naughty, something like that.
Yeah, Kyle Hamilton's a weird player. I wouldn't have expected him to really play a lot on Hill. He's actually slower. He had a horrific 40 at the combine. And he played a lot of safety at Notre Dame, but he's athletic enough where he can come down in the slot and stuff. But he doesn't like line up wide on corners very often. So I wasn't really expecting that to be the matchup. But I mean, even just removing him from the field, your Baltimore defense can't do as much.
He's a Swiss Army knife, right? I mean,
he's
that's
awesome.
kind of he's amazing. He's really good. He has some of the best football instincts, period. And I'm not just saying from a one-game sample size. Everybody watched him against San Francisco. Pretty outrageous. But going back to his Notre Dame days, you know, you talked about it. They did so many different, like he could line up on the edge from time to time. You're like, what is going on? And why is Kyle Hamilton getting after everybody?
Yeah, man, he's big and he's a stud. So we don't talk about defenders a lot on the show and inactives, but I do think he's important.
But it's fun because then it's like, hey, I know ball takes, but you know what? That doesn't matter from a fantasy perspective. It's still fun to talk about, no doubt about it. A little bit of bar chat for sure as we're getting into it. But Zay Flowers active. A lot of these other guys then we were kind of wondering about active. Marvin Mims coming up later, and we'll talk late swap. We'll talk quarterback here because I've got a gross one for the people. If you didn't check out our show on Thursday, that being Loughy and myself doing the ownership show, kicking things off. But Broncos country, let's ride. That's for sure. But now with the other guy. Let's go to the top of quarterback here and begin our little journey. Now, the Sims tool, it is phenomenal. It has helped me win a lot of money here in NFL Showdown just in the last 2 days. Binked the $3 on Thursday for the showdown, ended up Saturday finishing second, almost took it down here again, but feeling really, really good about what the Sims tool has been putting out, and I'm letting it run quite a bit here. You're going to see a lot of Zamir White at the top. You're going to see a lot of these wide receivers that are sitting in that mid-range, but at the quarterback position, seems as though it is really skewing us towards going to the top of the builds with one Jalen Hurts, 8,300. Let's just start with this. In cash, if you're playing cash today, are you just playing Jalen Hurts and not thinking twice?
You could make builds that have like Tyrod. I think you have two avenues. You either pay all the way up for Hurts, or you pay all the way down. It's kind of like when you play Tyrod, you can jam Tyreek and McCaffrey a little easier. If you play Hurts, you can't really do that. So it's a debate at least worth having. I feel a lot better about Hurts, I'll tell you that. So that's the avenue I would go. But there's a debate to be had at least.
Really, really stoked about it. He's really, really good. But here's the thing that's really tough for me is that I do like DeAndre Swift at the running back position, and then doubles are really hard to feel good about right now for me with one Jalen Hurts. I feel like there's going to be a lot of overlap towards those builds. Some of the run backs with Arizona outside of Trey McBride feel really uncomfortable. So from a game stack perspective, like I know Ben had talked a little bit previously on previous shows, and then I'm sure today as well, about his interest in the Philly-Arizona game. And I'm not saying that I don't have it, but it just seems like the field is there in such a prominent way for tournaments. And on a 13-game slate, I can find it a little bit easier to get away from like jamming Hurts with some of those doubles. But I do have some singles with him. Do feel pretty good about him, A.J. Brown, him, Devonta Smith, and then building out other contrarian pieces in some of those lineups. So, yeah, I'm just kind of going off the Sims tool, and it is really about Mr. Jalen Hurts here in this spot. But Josh Allen there, 8,200. Never hate getting there, especially knowing what that rushing upside can be from time to time. But 27 implied total going up against New England here. Expected to be pretty comfortable, but James Cook still feels like he's going to be cutting into what Josh Allen's potential workload could be there, especially on the ground. And at 8,200, you need that, which leads me to Lamar Jackson at 7,700, Patrick Mahomes at 7,500. I love both of them for tournaments. Patrick Mahomes, 3.7%. It stood out to me Thursday. It's gotten even more pronounced. And with just 3 games in that afternoon window and knowing how much Stidham I have in my lineups, it's an egregious amount, people. I want to be able to have some maneuverability and base some of the results of early plays that I have here and swap into different things. Seattle, Pittsburgh, not all that appealing. Denver, LA is to me, and as is Kansas City, Cincinnati, with a sub 8K. Jamar Chase expected to be suiting up here. But how do you feel about the other 7K plays here at the quarterback position? Josh Allen, is he somebody who's showing up in your lineups? Give me all of the tea here.
The player I have the most of in this range is Purdy, but I'll start like top down. So we'll go Allen first.
Okay.
He's still coming in with some ownership. I mean, like quarterback's always pretty spread. So you talk about the most owned guys versus the least owned guys. You never really gain that much leverage at this position. And Josh Allen's still going to come in around 5%, especially in large field stuff. He's tricky to play because there's so much volatility in his projection, even against New England, a team he's historically played really well against. We've now seen them just take this extremely run-heavy approach, and they change coordinators middle of the season. So this isn't necessarily just a blip on the radar, an opponent-specific thing. Maybe this is just a wholesale offensive change after they removed Ken Dorsey. I don't know the answer. We're still dealing with small samples. You've had a pass game that's been relatively dysfunctional. Stephon Diggs has played terribly. Gabe Davis is only able to beat the most inferior of opponents, and New England's defense actually isn't terrible. And then they've kind of just removed Kincaid from the field and put him in this 50-50 timeshare with Knox. So if you're stacking him, which I don't think you have to, he's become increasingly difficult to play. And you talked about like doubles and stuff. You don't have to do that stuff. Like one of the biggest things The Sims has taught me, since I've been using it this season is these like heuristics we used to use. We need to game stack. We need to run a receiver and a run back. We need to double these players. You don't have to do that. You don't have to play Hurts with anybody. You don't have to play Josh Allen with anybody, especially the mobile signal callers. So when I look at my Allen lineups, a lot of them are just him by himself, and I don't have that many to begin with. Lamar's a player I do have quite a bit of interest in against Miami. It's a tough matchup, but it could get back and forth a little bit more with some of the defensive absences for this Baltimore team. There's also a ton of leverage to be had, and he functions a little differently. All the players you stack Lamar with are cheap outside of Flowers, who's still middling in price. You don't really have to pay a lot for him. So the overall game environment is good from a total perspective. Pass catchers are cheap. You don't have to use one because Lamar's so mobile. But then, like, we go down to Purdy. He has a better straight up projection than Patrick Mahomes. The ownership is going to be very similar between the two. He's cheaper. He has a better matchup. That's kind of debatable. Honestly, they're like the two worst secondaries those two quarterbacks are facing. But the stacks are way cleaner than Mahomes. He's just been straight up better. So for me, it's just really hard to play Pat Mahomes at all when you have Purdy right there at similar ownership. And the Sims are telling us that too. And even like I'm playing mostly large field stuff. I didn't get a single Mahomes lineup in a 150 set. So you really got to force him in. I understand the argument. You're kind of just betting on regression to his career stats. But man, he's had, as far as Pat Mahomes goes, he's had a bad year.
Yeah, he definitely has. I'm not trying to negate that. And you have a top stack percentage for San Francisco, 13.5% here at Stochastic, you know, being able to intertwine some of that in addition to the Sims tool when you're hand building, when you're doing some other stuff, always useful. But yeah, Philadelphia sitting there 21%, which is a massive number on a 13 gamer. For me, it's getting to Jalen Hurts. I am getting to some Brock Purdy for sure. I'm north of the field on Brock Purdy as well, but for me, it's just finding some type of leverage where, yeah, Cincinnati's got a terrible defense. You have Patrick Mahomes with Rashee Rice out there a ton, which makes him far more viable. Still a small sample size, considering we just have seen his snap share go up north of 90% the last two games. Not a large sample size here, but that opportunity is going to be there with him. And then tight end, obviously, Travis Kelce has not been good or as good as we expect Travis Kelce to be at the position, but I think it's pretty clean how I want to get to Patrick Mahomes stacks. And considering how low owned that is, I'm happy to try to maneuver it around in the late window of games here and try to like take some of my better lineups and maybe improve upon, you know, some of the stuff where I know how much Stidham I'm getting to here. Again, 38% Jared Stidham for me today. Rip City. Highest exposure I've had to a quarterback by far on any slate this season, probably. Yeah, probably on any main slate, if we're going to be honest with it. Again, we'll get there. It's going to go very poorly for me. But in this mid-range, Baker Mayfield's been awesome. He's somebody that I was surprised didn't show up nearly as much in the Sims tool or in the lineup generator, which you can check out over at Stochastic as well. Kyler Murray, that game environment. Matt Stafford, generally somebody that I'm really, really high on, but that price is getting up there at 6,600, and you really need him to go out and sling it around the yard to be able to put up like a slate-breaking performance. And hey, did you know Matt Stafford, 0 games, 25 or more fantasy points this season? I thought that was a pretty wild number to throw out there, but anything in the 6K range, pretty limited options.
Yeah, I think Kyler's interesting. A little bit of Stafford, some Mayfield, but it's either pay all the way up or pay all the way down. And to kind of just like put a bow on the Mahomes conversation, you have almost identical projections between Mahomes, CJ Stroud, and Justin Fields, and you're getting even more leverage playing Stroud and Fields. So, I mean, like the leverage call, like I don't know why you just wouldn't play Stroud or Fields if you're just looking strictly on projection versus ownership. So that's what the Sims gave me. We're all talking like that 7 to 7K, 7.5K range. Mm-hmm. So those are guys I think at least worth mentioning before we move on to the 6K range. They grade out very well in the Sims for large fields specifically. Mahomes doesn't really grade out well anywhere, which is going to be interesting to see how many people are using the Sims these days. Like we could be wrong and have Mahomes a little over-owned. So I think you have to play this sort of delicately. If you think Mahomes comes in under-owned, like less owned than Fields or Stroud or significantly less owned than Purdy, that's where I have interest. But at the current numbers, he's not going to be in my portfolio, at least not significantly, maybe like 5 lineups or less.
Well, that'll be fun for me. That's for sure. I'm just kind of taking a little bit off the top from all the other guys. Again, there's a lot of ways to be overweight without being stupid to some of these top tier guys. Again, Philadelphia and San Francisco. If you just take those two together and you just play all the Hurts, all the Purdy, you have a third of the time you're going to finish out with a top stack. Now you get the other pieces to come along for it, but you kind of know it's going to be Goddard, Smith, Brown. If you get that ceiling performance from Hurts, you're getting at least one coming along for the ride. San Francisco, you kind of have 4 options to pull from. I feel like the nice thing about Kansas City for me is that if they're going to be low owned, it is so hard to imagine a scenario where Justin Watson is the must-have, where you have some of these other pieces. It's just so clear-cut to me that it's going to be Rice, Kelsey, maybe a little bit of Pacheco here. We shall see here when we get to the running back position, but I've been waiting for it because it's disturbing. It's disgusting, but it is what it is. I have a crazy amount of Jarrett Stidham here at the bottom of the quarterback range. It's a guy that I'm not all that familiar with, but when I saw that he was going to be starting for Russell Wilson, I believe it was Wednesday that news dropped, pulled up everything, watched him play for Vegas up against San Francisco last season, and he shredded San Francisco. And it can be a 1-game sample size. Anybody can look good for a game, especially when you had height of his powers Devontae Adams playing football. But I really liked what I saw from Stidham. He's had all of 2 games that he started at the tail end of last year, so no real sample size that exists there. But he at least looked very, very competent to me. And again, I know that you're the college football guy. I'll let you talk to his background. Hopefully you don't come at me with like Tommy DeVito, where he's the worst quarterback in the Big Ten or something. But he is somebody who got offered a contract before Sean Payton got there. And then, well, Sean Payton, it sounds like, has been wanting to start him for a while, but getting a spark to the offense, maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. All I know is that he is really cheap. He has really cheap pass catchers here. Jerry Jeudy, the most expensive pass catcher. I am rotating this team out a ton going up against this Chargers defense, which seemingly quit. They have a coach who's gone now as a result. What is your interest level, if you have any, in the guy that I am jamming today, Jarrett Stidham?
I think he's okay. He's kind of tricky. As far as his college profile goes, he's pretty middling. Heard a lot of people around the industry talk about his rushing ability, which he didn't really display in college, which is a much larger sample than the 1 or 2 games he's played in the pros. But as a passer, he was decent. And he also played for a coaching staff that got run out of town and fired. And if you look back at his Auburn stats, that's the coaching staff that couldn't figure out how to use Bo Nix, who nearly won the Heisman. So a lot of noise in his college profile, I think. But offense is decent for Denver. I've heard some people argue he's an upgrade. I think he's going to catch some ownership today. So he's tricky. The real balance I'm trying to find is where the ownership actually comes in on like him versus Tyrod. Yep. I have more interest in Tyrod from just an overall skill perspective. But I don't know. I'm not going to lie to you. I can't really come in here and say I have like a great feel on where the Stidham versus the Tyrod ownership is going to be. Right now, I'm overweight to Tyrod. But again, I kind of wanted to hear what you thought where. Honestly, this is probably just going to be an ownership play for me. Whichever one's higher owned, I'm going to try to come in a little under the field. Whichever one's lower owned, I want to come in a little over. My inclination was that it would be Tyrod, but I don't know. Talk me into Stidham because this is just going to be an ownership play.
Yeah, so Tyrod Taylor, there's no doubt that $4,600 for him is wrong. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that $4,600 Tyrod, but I'm telling you, there's just been too much conversation. And I mean, we have him projected for 10+% right now here. He's the 2nd most popular quarterback that exists on the slate. He goes up against a Rams secondary. I mean, 3rd most fantasy points to quarterbacks that they're allowing. So there's an opportunity for him to rush and utilize some of like what his skill set is. And you get the same thing I just talked about for Jarrett Stidham, where it's super cheap pass catchers. I think some of the run back options are more appealing for people. Looking at the Rams, you at least have Nakua. You've seen the ceiling Cup. He exists. They're not pulling any ownership whatsoever. So maybe I'm wrong about that. But I got to think that Tyrod Taylor in general, just $4,600 for a rushing quarterback, he has the higher floor. I don't think that's the question. But if I'm trying to go out and win a tournament today, there's a guy in Jarrett Stidham. He was $4,100 on that slate from 2 years ago. Again, I went kind of deep diving on it because I was like, am I really going to be doing this to myself today? But it's just so easy to piece him together with Jerry Jeudy and X player, whether that's Johnson, Lil Jordan Humphrey. I have some Cruel, that tight end, who actually looked pretty good last week, even alongside Russell Wilson there. But I mean, he carved up San Francisco, then went up against Kansas City the week after that. It was still okay, but they got ran out of there. And as you said, the rushing equity for Jarrett Stidham isn't a 0. He had 7 rushing attempts in both those games last season for 34 and 50 yards respectively. So again, it's a 2-game sample size. I'm not going to go crazy for it, but if people had seen him play, and if he had played the same way he had in those 2 previous games against good defenses, being San Francisco and Kansas City, he'd be mega chalk at 4,800. And instead, I'm getting him at 4.3%, pure leverage play. I think that's about all the Jarrett Stidham conversation I can stomach here for the rest of the day.
Yeah, I think I'm probably just going to try to middle these two guys.
Yep.
I think
that's probably a good call. That's a good call.
When you talk about it like this and how uncertain it is, I don't know if I really want Stidham or Tyrod to, end my day.
I was going to say, here's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about getting to the flip and having it say in like the $33, I'm playing in like the SPY, the $100 and stuff. It's like, I don't want to play Tyrod Taylor at 20% ownership. And I feel like that is live there. I know it is not live for Jarrett Stidham. And all things being considered, it's basically the identical spot.
Yeah, I think we're a little rich on Tyrods. You're just listening to content all week. Essentially, the whole industry is doing what we're doing, poking holes in him. All right, he's 34 years old right now. Does he run as much as he once did? I don't know. He had 0 designed attempts in his first appearance, really, of the year last week. But he came in relief of DeVito. I don't know. They were down in the game, throwing from behind. So who knows? We know he's mobile. These people are probably right that there is a little bit of a decline as you get to be age 34. But honestly,
there's a bit of a decline when you get to 36 too. Let me tell you.
I just turned 30, man. I can tell you that
you just turned 30. You just turned 30. You and Jordan Klein, your babies, children.
Jordan's like 27 or something. He's still
dude, bro, dude, no, bro, dude, don't, no, ever. I beat him in Ojai, California yesterday. I wonder where you learned about that lovely place. Wonder who that was. He must be sharp. Anywho, friends, let's continue on our merry way here. But first, I just want to talk about Owner's Box because they have a ton of overlay every single Sunday. They are our main sponsor here, and they are the sponsor of this program here. I love playing over there purely because I don't have to deal with defense. Now, defense, there are a couple of them I think do stand out on today's slate specifically. Maybe it's not as difficult as it might be on other slates, but my goodness, having the ability to play college-style DFS. If you've been playing, you should be playing DFS for tomorrow. Check out my guy, Matt Gajewski's projections. I'm going to be firing that 24-24 that they have going for the bowl games. Also, do I want to go to the Rose Bowl? I'm having a tough time deciding if I want to or not, but not having a tough time deciding if I want to play over at Owner's Box because the answer is yes. You can full stack games. You could full stack Arizona and Philly. You could take that entire Chargers and Broncos game and play Hill and McCaffrey in lineups and have it look like not complete death. It's a really fun game type. Plus, the Sims tool is fully operational. It's a fully operational Death Star to be able to check that out. So take advantage of the Sims tool when you're building over at Owner's Box. Also take advantage of their $250 first match deposit bonus. Now it's increased to $500, friends. So that is $500 in. You get $500 back from Owner's Box. You get a couple of lightning lineup tickets, the $5 contest tickets there. Really cool stuff that they have going. So I would be checking that out here in the next, 47 minutes we have before lock, purely because you see less than 50% full, 44% full for that 75K kickoff, 15K to first. Ridiculous stuff. We're talking overlay. That is a very tough thing to find in the year of our Lord 2023 before we turn it over to 2024. It'll be equally tough to find there. That is for sure as well. So take advantage of Owner's Box giving you this opportunity now in the link in the video description box or the one that Jordan Klein just put into chat for the people there. Follow the link, sign up, get that $500 first match deposit bonus, and then win yourself some money. Utilize the Sims tool. Utilize everything we have here at the site at Stochastic to help you make money. Thank you so much to Owner's Box. We'll check in on the overlay here in a little bit. But we got to go to running back. This is the most ridiculous, cracked out running back position we've had all year long, correct?
Yeah, it's, huge main slate, 13 games. So you get a lot of studs and you get some injuries. So we have the value pieces to sort of make it work. You want to get to McCaffrey? No problem. You want to get to Kyron? No problem. You're probably playing Zamir, but I think you can feel good about that too, which also gives us a ton of pivots. So yeah, it's a really fun position, I think. My favorite one to talk about for sure.
I don't know if we have a lot of pivots around Zamir White. That's where the Sims tool has probably talked me into just jamming him quite a bit and then living with the results.
I don't know.
Ooh, I'm excited. If you have some pivots down there, do tell. Just don't say Tajay Spears or I'll cry.
It's not really pivots. It's just we haven't seen a lot of Zamir White yet. They've been pretty fortunate in the games he's played. You know, you get 2 defensive scores against Kansas City, and then you play from positive game script. Really, the whole game. I mean, he was having a horrific game until just the final drive where he ripped off that long run. And if they get down immediately, which, you know, it's pretty competitive spread. I don't think that's super likely, but maybe it happens. How much Abdullah do we see? Zamir White has never been a pass catcher. Doesn't mean he can't do it. We just haven't seen it. And he also didn't do it in college. So I don't know. I think there's some fragility with him. But at that price point, you can also sort of eat some fragility because, you know, like maybe you pivot up to Singletary. Really, everyone you want to pivot to, you have to go up. So you do have to make a concession unless you're willing to play like a Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, Zamir White, that is a good point. I've been thinking about that a little bit with, you know, my Jonathan Taylor exposure because I was getting a ton of him earlier. Not as much now. It's kind of been spread around a little bit more in that range. Guys like Devon Achane, now that there's no Mostert, guys, you know, just there's so many places to go in that mid-range. But I wanted to start with Zamir White. He's the most popular back. For good reason, I think, on this slate. He's 5,100, bell cow back, but he's been an extreme positive game script. So you had 2 defensive touchdowns from Kansas City last week. They just simply ran him into the ground. He ran great, too. 6.6 yards per carry, was bouncing off dudes left and right. It was fantastic to watch, especially when I just jammed him there, even if I probably shouldn't have in DFS entirely there when I saw the ownership. It was wild. But the Chargers spot was extreme positive game script. So if you run into a spot where they're coming from behind, yeah, I think Abdullah makes sense. But then Brandon Bolden, he can get mixed in there too for passing downs. And it just feels like it's kind of guessing towards Abdullah. I have to kind of get 2 things right. 1, Abdullah has to play a lot more than we think. And then 2, he's got to outsnap Bolden too, which I don't think is just a complete foregone conclusion in some of these passing down situations. So I don't know. I've been kind of toying with if I wanted to do anything there. Bolden is 4K flat. I don't think I have the nerve to be able to play him here, a guy who's not even like projected for anything.
Yeah,
but
let me be clear. I was not advocating we play Abdullah.
Okay.
I was just saying we have holes maybe in Zamir's game more as
got it.
Maybe if you're really overweight to Zamir, temper it a little bit. I don't have a single share of Abdullah, so I just before you go any further.
You hit the panic button there. You're like, Eric's not going to make me say this. I didn't say this. That was not me.
Well, I mean, I might have said it. Sometimes I accidentally I'm not clear with my words. So just want to be very clear. I have 0 of
you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Oh, Rush Hour was so good. Do you remember the original? Why am I asking you this? Of course, you've never seen Rush Hour.
Rush Hour? No.
Oh, fuck.
I do go, like, when you guys probably watch Netflix, sometimes I go and rewatch old college football games.
You're just sitting out in a log cabin in the middle of the forest in Wisconsin watching old football games from like 1993 Rose Bowl.
I live in Milwaukee, so no, but I don't go that far back. Usually just to watch like some players that maybe will be drafted this year, you know, stuff like that.
Cool.
You never do that? It's fun.
No. Christian McCaffrey is 9,600 on today's slate. I don't care. I'm over the field on 22.8%. Kyren Williams, Williams, 8,300. He's painting it all over the place. That was a paint joke. Rashad White, 7,600. My God, the opportunity for these 3 running backs is outrageous. White, Williams, McCaffrey. Why is White getting half the ownership of Kyren Williams, and why is he getting 1/4 the ownership of McCaffrey with the identical workload against a New Orleans team that doesn't have Lattimore, has definitely regressed, and is 7,600? It helps me make a lot of things work. I like Rashad White a lot for tournaments today, but I do understand that McCaffrey and Kyren Williams are facing the teams that give up the first and second most fantasy points to running backs respectively. So, hey, what can you do? How are we feeling about the top of this board? Because I have a lot of White. I'm a little bit below on Kyren, and then Christian McCaffrey, undisputably good to me.
Yeah, I have no issues playing Rashad White. He's a guy I'm trying to bring up in my portfolio right now. I'm a little underweight compared to where we have him for ownership, which is not something that I want. I'm coming in a little over to guys like Kyren, who you laid it out. If you want to play Kyren and he's the chalk PCE, that's completely fine with me. Just make sure you're being careful with him because he will be owned. McCaffrey's in like a league of his own. I think you just play him unless you decide he's your leverage point for some reason. Cash games, he's certainly in your lineups. Taylor, I think, is a little bit risky at his price. We named about 4 guys I would rather play just from a straight up projection perspective, but he's not going to be super owned. A lot of that just comes down to alternatives. Like not every running back in this range can be 40% owned. So Taylor, somewhat interesting to me. James Cook, I think there's always going to be fragility in his projection because they use 3 backs. They use Josh Allen around the goal line. And they've been really run heavy recently. So what's to say they don't return to a pass heavy script? We don't know. I think it's likely that they run here. They're likely to beat New England. So I understand the projection on him, but I think it's a little more fragile compared to Rachaad White, Jonathan Taylor, Kyren Williams, and certainly McCaffrey.
Yeah, it is McCaffrey on a tier planet of his own for sure. And, there's just so many ways that he can destroy you even at 9,600. How about 11K on FanDuel? Want to give the FanDuel people a little bit of a shout out. I saw that number and I said, you know what? I think I'm just going to focus on one site today here. Ring in the new year, not stressed out here on a show, trying to play multiple sites on Live Before Lock. But what do you think about an 11K Christian McCaffrey over there? Because the touchdown expectation is through the roof, but that's still a massive tag, something I haven't seen over there in a while.
Yeah, I don't play FanDuel usually, playing a lot of sports like play hoops and stuff. And we're on Live Before Lock, so it's a lot to manage. I imagine there's ways you can make it work.
Yeah, it is.
Like we have a lot of injuries, so I mean, you could play a bunch of punt receivers that we'll talk about. There's Zamir can't be that expensive over there. I mean, there's probably ways you can do it.
7K range. We've got Kamara, so starting 7,500 down. We talked about Rachaad White already. Jonathan Taylor, I had a ton of him earlier in the week. I still have a little bit. I'm going to be playing him in the Rainmaker streets quite a bit here because his cards were way too cheap with no Zach Moss last week, and now I'm just rolling it over this week. Hopefully I can hit this time around, that's for sure. Travis Etienne, James Cook, pulling the most ownership out of anybody in this range now, which is pretty insane to think about. But, I mean, you can make a case for just about everybody here in some way, shape, or form. I think Taylor would be the guy I'd want to get to the most, but like Travis Etienne at this ownership against Carolina, it's standing out a little bit to me. I'm just not getting there for some reason. Talk to me about this range.
I didn't get a ton of Etienne, but I still came in over the field because his ownership projection is so low.
Yeah.
So even with like Beathard in there, the matchup is so good. Carolina, you should be able to just walk over. Etienne's workload is not in question. So yeah, I understand the play. And what I like about him is you can just have a small piece of your portfolio dedicated to Etienne and you're still probably over the field. So he's a pretty good leverage play and a pretty easy one to get to. So, I mean, he's like, what, my 6th most owned back in this range, and I'm still projected to be over the field, which is nice. Cook, we talked about coming in pretty consistent with the field on him. I think he's fragile, so he's definitely not a player I want to be overexposed to, but workload has been there recently. If that continues, he's going to be an awesome play against New England. We're cutting this off at 7K, correct?
Yeah, well, no, just keep it crashing. We got a lot to get to here, 37 minutes. I know we got a little bit of a late start, but again, that was awfully nice of them because I was able to update things multiple times with the actives and actives. Sometimes when it flips over, it's like, oh shit, I got to update everything. And obviously the Bears news, I wanted to at least get some Herbert Johnson. And I think Roschon Johnson in a bounce back spot, quote unquote, I mean, bounce back spot here. If they end up playing a pretty neutral game here in this spot, Atlanta, we know the rush defense is a lot better than what Arizona's is, but I mean, maybe that opens up some passing game opportunity for Roschon here. I don't completely hate it, but anywho, that's just something that I wanted to update before this show so that I could speak intelligently somewhat about it, even though that's not normally my thing. 6K range. I'll just let you open it up to your favorite tournament plays there.
It's a tricky range because you have such good projections on the elite guys. And now that players like Zamir White and there's some dicier guys, but guys you can definitely play like Jeff Wilson, who sort of lead you to a stars and scrubs build, where I think this 6K range is going overlooked a little bit. And there are definitely some players I want here, but none of them are going to be massive parts of the portfolio because of that. So just to name a few, Saquon Barkley, I think, is someone that we should have some interest in, just workload. Rams matchup, a little better than some of the ones he's played recently. And I think Tyrod's a huge upgrade on Tommy DeVito. So usually just have more competent offense. If you have more competent offense, you have more longer drives. Should be more opportunity for Saquon, who's still going to be the engine of the offense. And mobile quarterbacks are generally good for running back. So coming in pretty even to the field on him. Some Pacheco. I mean, I'm just worried about this guy learning how to buckle his chin strap at this point. but you're playing the worst defense in football outside of Washington. Achane's the really tricky guy in this range and probably the one we need to spend the most time on without Mostert. However you think this backfield breaks down between him and Jeff Wilson is going to be really important to this slate because you have a lot of opportunity. You have no Waddle. You're still an offense that looks to get the ball into your explosive playmakers' hands. But Achane's been on the injury report since he entered the league. I was glad to see he got in a full practice Friday, but they still have used Jeff Wilson more than I ever expected. So I don't know. How are you treating Achane, I guess is the best way to ask this.
Let's head to Odd Shopper, Mr. Jordan Klein here. One of my favorite things to do, I talk about it all the time, is just kind of, we're building out projections here. One of the best ways to at least get a baseline to see where the market is just looking up rushing props on some of these guys. And again, at Odd Shopper, we can help you find the best bets. And there is one that's standing out for Devon Achane right now, over 24.5 receiving yards, only a 1% expected value there, but still decent enough spot there for Achane. But I just want to point out his rushing yards prop compared to some of the other pieces that might be in his range there. 54.5 that we're looking at. There is obviously fragility here. We don't know the exact way it pans out, but I want to highlight one thing that I ended up betting earlier in the day here. 10.5, then it was at 11.5. Now it's at 12.5. Rushing attempts is the number, plus 102. Over 12.5 is the best line over at DraftKings. Again, this has been bet up a little bit by people like me, people elsewhere, where it just made sense. I think for Devon Achane to have a higher number than that. We saw him, 17 carries it was 4 weeks ago. Obviously, these are, it's game script specific, but with no Raheem Mostert out there, this is only a 3.5 spread. I think he's a decent enough play, but there's nothing like slam dunk, windmill slam kind of a number that I see here from Devon Achane from this, just because if he goes towards, 60 yards on 12 carries for, maybe another 25 yards passing, that's all of about 11, 12 fantasy points. I'm basically saying that's, maybe a 35th, 40th percentile outcome. But, Devon Achane, there is a definite floor there at 6,700. I'm not in love with it. And as you said, I think Jeff Wilson can push him for at least some of this work. But again, just for me, I'm putting in 12 carries for him. That's kind of how I'm creating my baseline for him. It's just using the prop world to inform my DFS play from time to time, something I do all the time in the NBA and I've done for years and years and years. But anything here on the page for Devon Achane help you out at all?
It's just he's like the toughest guy to project. So, I mean, These props could get buried on either side. So I don't know. I still find it exceedingly tricky, just like having a background in projections.
Mm-hmm.
He's a nightmare because you don't know the workload and he's hyper efficient.
Yep.
So generally these players regress over time, but some don't. You have like Tyreek Hill, and it's funny, he just happens to be on the same team. You have these outliers, and Achane is still young in his career that you don't know whether he's an outlier or not. So yeah, man, he's hard. I'm gonna play him. I'm good. At the end of the day, I want to be overexposed to Miami players. So I'm going to come in slightly over to both Achane and Jeff Wilson as well as Tyreek Hill. It's been a profitable way to just build lineups in the past. So honestly, I think in this range, he still stands out as a pretty good play. I like Swift as well, just to name a couple others. He's tricky with the Hurts QB sneak stuff, but yeah, they should score 1,000,000 points against Arizona.
Yeah, if you guys want to check out Odd Shopper as well, right now, huge slash, like Scream style slash. Another movie reference Matt doesn't get. Over at Odd Shopper, it's $15 for a week now. You can jump in the Discord, get my betting card, get everybody else's cards there. Again, so much great stuff. The Fantasy Optimizer, if you're in a non-legal state, to help you with prize picks, underdog plays, be able to project those out or be able to just take the top plays from that in terms of expected win percentage, make yourself some money. And hey, use promo code Lindy when you do 20% off your first week there. First month, $50. It would be down to $42. Look at that. I can do math on the fly. So cool. Let's continue on our merry way here at running back. But first, Super Chats. I'm going to get it caught up really, really quickly, friends. Riley Cooper, $14.99. Cedric Wilson or Berrios? He's asking Miami guys. Good segue for us.
Cedric Wilson for me.
Same here. Ace of Spade, $2. DK Tiers options. Happy New Year's, guys. Thanks. Appreciate you for sure. Rashi Rice, Justin Ross, Richie James expected to get more snaps for Chiefs going forward. Oh, you mean you don't want 80% of snaps for MVS for his 2% target share? Shocking. Whatever.
I don't have any confidence in the Chiefs wide receivers outside of Rashee Rice.
Richie James, I loved in San Francisco for like one game, I think it was. He
I
won me
loved him
something.
at Middle Tennessee State.
I love you so much. See, now we're back. Now our
One of the
reporter's
old
back.
games I recently watched was an Alabama Middle Tennessee State game from like
Why?
2015 where
What?
Richie was on the roster.
So it was like a Wednesday night. You know what? I want to go back and watch Alabama Middle Tennessee State from 2015.
It was a little while ago, like in the summer, but I did do that semi-recently. Anyway, Richie James rules. He also does a backflip after every win when he's on the field. It's really cool. But I think he's better than MVS to bring this back to DFS.
Tier 1, Jalen Hurts. Tier 2, Christian McCaffrey. Tier 3, Rachaad White. Tier 4, Jonathan Taylor. Tier 5, Brock Purdy. Tier 6, Travis Kelce. Tier 7, Isaiah Pacheco. And Tier 8, Devon Achane. Thank you so much, Ace of Spades, for being so a loyal listener. I'm still beside myself right now. Slim Lancaster, hopefully that helped you as well. DK Tiers. And then he asked, best low-owned plays at each position. Ooh, want to do a little preview for the people? Low-owned play at quarterback, Jarrett Stidham for me, obviously.
All right. My favorite low-owned play is probably Stroud, but you kind of have to do this in tiers. So I think expensive one, Stroud. I honestly kind of think Easton Stick is my favorite low-owned QB play among the cheap guys. We didn't talk about him a lot, but I think he kind of does everything you want Tyrod and Jarrett Stidham to do, only we've seen him suck. We haven't seen Tyrod suck in a while, and unless you play a lot of preseason DFS, you probably have never seen Jarrett Stidham suck, but he has. We're all talking about bad play, so just a guy who's going to be like 2% owned, I think Easton Stick there. We're going to alternate here. You want me to go to running back?
No, we'll go to running back here next. Again, expensive would be Mahomes, and I know you don't like it, so that makes me like it even more here.
No, okay, so one last thing before we do running back.
Good.
If you have a take on Mahomes that's different than mine or different than ownership or Fields, you can go into the Sims tool and be like, give me some Mahomes lineups. And it's going to give you good ones. It's not that you can't play Mahomes at all. If you want to have, and this could just be a risk tolerance thing. So maybe you don't want to be overexposed to one of the, maybe you don't want so much Hurts. You're just like, I want to spread this out a little bit. I don't want to get buried by Mahomes. Give me the best Mahomes lineups. The Sims tool will do that, and they're going to be good. So I'll just say that. You can't really make like bad lineups with the Sims tool, which is crazy to say, but it's true.
Running back, expensive guy, Rachaad White. Love him at 7.6% owned. Playing him in some bigger lineups. And then on the cheap end, we haven't gotten there yet. A little bit of a preview. I almost said preamble, but Roschon Johnson for me, 4,900.
Expensive end, I'll say Pacheco, assuming you consider him expensive.
I do.
Cheap end.
He's fancy.
He's a little fancy, yeah. Cheap end, I'll go Devin Singletary.
Oh, I like that one too. We'll get to that. Wide receiver on the expensive end, lower owned Mike Evans for me. No Marshawn Lattimore, and so not going to get ejected today. And Noah Brown. I'll play into the I'll play into your CJ Stroud a little bit. 5,100 Noah Brown. I love for tournaments.
I think the expensive range, it's Debo and Ayuk, just the expensive San Fran guys. Cheap end is tough, man. Probably Rashid Shaheed. He's semi-owned. If you want to go even like cheaper than, or I guess less owned than that, I agree with you on Noah Brown. Maybe like a Dortch is a great game environment if you want to run back to Philly. A lot of injuries for Arizona, and he's shown the ability to earn targets at a pretty high level over a pretty decent sample at this point.
And tight end for me, I'll call him expensive because it's relative to the position. Isaiah Likely, 4,600, 6.9% owned. He's low owned. And then don't be cruel to a heart that's true. Lucas Cruel, friends, Denver, 2,800.
Dalton Schultz among the semi-expensive guys, semi-owned guys. Low owned, probably Waller, I guess.
Yeah. Waller.
Your guy from last week.
That's good. Yeah.
If you like really cheap guys,
I want to drop kick Waller. I'm so mad at him. All the opportunity and all the land, can't do anything with it.
You should be mad at DeVito.
I am mad at DeVito. He sucks. Cool. We got more super chats. We'll fly here. We'll fly so that we can finish out running back into wide receiver. But Jordan Klein, not even going to entertain it, but he's a member for 33 months. He's working the camera. Matt's favorite Eric exotic play of the day. What's an Eric exotic play of the day? That's
I
different.
think he
That's
meant to say Matt and Eric's favorite exotic play.
Oh, got it. So you just can't type anymore? That's what it is. Cool. Cool.
Dude, I can barely type.
Christian McCaffrey, obviously. Anyway.
He's not exotic.
That's the joke.
Give me like a Josh Downs. That's exotic. This is like a synonym for your like greasy play is how I read it.
Who's a wagon today?
Yeah,
Chaos is a wagon.
Who?
It's a Game of Thrones reference that I just changed from ladder to wagon just because I wanted to. Yeah.
I've seen that show, believe it or not.
You have seen Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
That's the only show you've ever seen?
One of my ex-girlfriends made me watch it. I did enjoy it though, I will say.
Yeah, it's enjoyable. I mean, what are you saying, cruel? All right, let's continue on. Running back, let's round out the position. Sub 6K. Chuba Hubbard, 6.2% owned, getting a lot of the workload. Sweet. Javonte Williams against the Chargers here. Can we just unleash the beast? That would be fun. Would like that very much. And then your guy, Devin Singletary, love that shout out as well. I think there's a lot of guys that we can kind of take shots on. Nobody that's a priority, but who are your favorites?
Yeah, I like Singletary. And as far as like exotic plays, I was going to say him. So fun little segue down here.
Oh, look at that. That's adorable.
I mean, with a lot of these pivots off Zamir, you're going to have to pay up a little bit. So you might have to change your build slightly. It could be worthwhile because he's going to be really owned today. But Singletary against Tennessee, it's not the best matchup. There's like two ways you could slice this. One, I think Houston has success, but obviously the easiest way to get at Tennessee is through the air. But Singletary's had a pretty good role, and especially in the pass game. I don't know why they ever tried to use Dare Ogunbowale, but they did for a few weeks, and he was absolutely horrific. So finally they got him off the field, which was good.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like the cheap end range, I'm kind of just looking at Jeff Wilson, you know?
Wilson, go ahead. I do like this call, by the way. This is a fun tournament play for the people.
And that I think the only other guy I got some shares of was Tajay Spears, which I get.
Yeah.
But if, say, Tennessee gets up in that game, things could go horribly wrong for Tajay Spears.
Sure could. Like, they could get really, really horrible for Tajay Spears. But they could
you kind of need Houston, I think, to get a lead early for Tajay to reach his ceiling with the alternatives on the slate. And
that's where I feel good about Jeff Wilson. Like, I do think, obviously, the matchup is atrocious going up against Baltimore here. But it's a 3-point game, 3-point spread. Going to be semi-competitive, and a 4,100 Jeff Wilson in the event that they want to have Achane on some type of bubble wrap because of the toe. I think there's at least a reason to say, all right, I know we had 17 carries in week 13 against Washington, but maybe that turns into 12, 13. That's some extra work for Jeff Wilson at the absolute seller.
Yeah, he's going to play some. We just don't know how much.
All right.
But he's 4,100. How much does he have to play?
Exactly. Yeah, he's got to play. Well, running back, it's an opportunity cost of the position in general. And obviously, yeah, you can get to maybe some more ceiling at wide receiver. Tight end, the mid-range is girthy enough where we can kind of get to whatever we want there. Well, yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
Good word.
Thank you. I have my moments. Anywho, Phil Sensig, $1.99. Who puts it in the end zone? The lotion. Put the lotion in the basket. I mean, we're just taking everything from NBA Live before lock. We're carrying it over here. Bless you, Jordan Klein. You coughed and sneezed, it looked like, at the same time. There's a whole thing. Love you too. Lotion play of the day. Who is it going to be? Who's it going to be? Roshan Johnson. Roshan Johnson. Yeah. Roshan Johnson can do it. Malcolm Revamp, $1.99. $3.20 max on both sides. Who for QB? Well, if you have 20 lineups, Matt, how would you kind of divvy that up? I think probably be putting 4 to Hurts, 4 to Brock. I don't know. I have a number
probably
of
one apiece to like Stroud, Fields, Mahomes, and then sprinkle the cheapies. Maybe one Lamar and then sprinkle the cheapies.
And then just jamming Zamir White all over the place in the middle of it. Mike H, $5. I am thinking about double stacking Lamar today, but with who is the question, or is he a better single stack? I do have quite a few doubles of Lamar here. I can pull those up here. I think we can pull those up in the Sims tool here as well, Jordan Klein. Can we pull up some of our best Lamar Jackson double stacks? Again, this is the beauty of this puppy. And obviously, if you go to the lineup generator and you just go 2 stacks with a run back or 2-man stacks on the bottom of that bar too, $15 for the week checking out the lineup generator here. But let's head to the Sims tool and see what the Lamar Jackson doubles are that are showing up at the top for me. a lot of Flowers and a lot of Likely. Those are the two most likely guys that I see here as pass catchers. Don't want to get too cute with Bateman. Don't want to get too cute trying to get too much Justice Hill in there at a running back position with tons of opportunity cost. But how do you feel about Lamar Jackson doubles here today as we pull up the Sims tool?
Fine with them. Got a fair amount of Beckham too. I'll echo what you said about Zay and Likely.
Yep. It is good stuff. It is good stuff. All right. Caught up on Super Chats. Times are good here. Times are good here. Let's head to wide receiver, yes?
Yes, sir.
Oh my gosh, at the top end, lots of opportunities to get there as we'll pull up the doubles here again. Jordan Klein going to run a Sims for us here, and that'll help us out as we talk about the wide receiver position because there's nobody over 20% owned. Demario Douglas at 18.5%, the highest owned in our projections. Zay Flowers actually number 2 there now at 16.5. You got Chris Olave. Like that a little bit. We'll see. I got to finish out some of my 20 max stuff here, my 150 set and things of that nature here. But DeAndre Hopkins is a wild one to see as the 4th highest owned just because I haven't heard his name at all. Maybe that ends up being something that ends up being true, that he ends up being up there. He's 6K now, so the price is coming down here. But among some of these chalkier wide receivers, because I mean, there's still a little bit of ownership coming in here. Who are some of them that are landing in your lineups?
Yeah, I'm definitely not playing Pop Douglas. Not playing a lot of DeAndre either. I just do not want to play into ownership for guys that either suck or that are in situations that suck. I don't think DeAndre sucks, but I do not think it's a great situation with Levis under center. So yeah, I mean, you're not really seeing a lot of ownership anywhere at the wide receiver position. It's very flat. The players I am willing to play close to their ownership are Shaheed, Zay Flowers, Rashee Rice, and Tyreek Hill. I have no interest in Pop Douglas. I might X him for large field tournaments and cash. You probably just eat his 4 catches for 40 yards, scoreless. But I mean, in tournaments, there's absolutely no way I'm playing him. At least not. Yeah, I'm not. I'm just gonna X him. I'm not playing any him.
Dante X him.
Yes.
These are jokes. He never even played college basketball for you. That's kind of tilting. I didn't even think
college basketball is still pretty new. They didn't even have that in the past.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. But anyway, Dante Exum goes to Australia, kills his draft stock. Now he's starting to show a reemergence after 2 years over in Europe. I think everybody could see an emergence in their life if they had 2 years in Europe. That's for sure. But that's neither here nor there. What is here or there is the expensive range of wide receiver because there are guys you want to mix and match. Hill, Brown, Diggs is so low owned. I have to get to a little bit. Puka Nakua, Cup. You've got a number of these dudes here. I'm just going to open up the entire board 7K plus. Who are the guys who are landing in your lineups the most, and why are they named Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk?
Well, they're named Tyreek Hill, and then
never mind. F me. Okay.
And I mean, I have a lot of Deebo and Ayuk as well. I named them whatever low-owned play or something. I don't know. Something. One of the little segments we did from a super chat, they were the player I named. So
Lotion in the basket play of the day.
I mean, they're I don't know who's going to get it, but somebody from San Francisco is going to go absolutely insane today. And I want exposure to them both, and Kittle as well. And McCaffrey's a no-brainer. But yes, love those two guys. As far as once you get beyond Tyreek Hill and the two we just named, I have a fair amount of A.J. Brown that's probably just in relation to getting a lot of hurts. Then Devontae Adams, actually. Shocking enough. But he's coming in. I mean, he's coming in like 4%.
Do tell.
And then Nico Collins, actually.
My God.
Well, I'm
here for it.
3 games ago.
I want you. I'm so here for it. Just please give the people the reasons, because the reasons matter a little bit.
Yeah. You've had probably the 3 worst runouts in a row for Devontae Adams. They get shut out, and then they murder 2 teams.
Yep.
Nobody on Vegas ran more than 23 routes in that game last week where they had 2 defensive scores against Kansas City. Adams still is an awesome target share. If they're just in a normal NFL game script for the first time in a month, he's going to have like 12 targets. Now, they're coming from Aiden O'Connell, but at the same time, is that different than Jamar Chase getting targets from Jake Browning? I mean, there's a lot of good receivers in really bad situations right now. So for Adams to come in as cheap, he's egregiously cheap for being Adams, and as low owned as he is, I think and again, I'm playing like 8% and coming in over the field on Adams, which is wild, but Yeah, I mean that's my case. You can push back if you'd like.
Nope, I just wanted to hear it because it was not what I was expecting to hear. I apologize. I'm responsible for my first action, not my reaction. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Take care of yourself, people. Take care of yourself. I think. Yeah. Anyway, let's continue on with the wide receiver position here. I'm getting to a lot of Rashee Rice. He was the chalky guy that I would have talked about earlier. I like the afternoon window of those 3 games. Mainly, nobody wants to play them, and I will. So that seems like fun. Obviously, I get more information to be able to kind of base what I want to do with some of these lineups. There's no way that I'm going to be just like not getting to some of these pieces here, but Nico Collins, 7,200 there on the expensive end. Happy to be getting there. I'm not sure. Noah Brown, again, 5,100. Absolutely love getting there. Jerry Jeudy, you know the daddy is jamming that one for sure as well. And then, well, 6,600 DJ Moore pulling 7% ownership here. I don't know what to make of it. Coming off of a dud last week, but something tells me the ownership could come even lower than 7% because Justin Fields not getting jammed at nearly the clip that he was last week going up against Arizona. Now it's Jalen Hurts' turn to be chalk in that department, but like getting to DJ Moore here in the mid-range. Who are some of the low-owned 5-6K receivers you're landing on?
A range I do have some interest in. You mentioned a lot of the ones that I'm playing a fair amount already, so for sure, Zay Flowers for Baltimore. He's one that I'm highly exposed to. DJ Moore's tricky because you have the ankle injury. And with DJ Moore, he's just like battled through it and been used as a decoy. So what does that look like? Is he fully healthy? I don't know. But the guy's an absolute warrior. So I'm willing to just play that if he's going to be semi-low owned. Otherwise, I think Olave is interesting. In that New Orleans game, you've got a pass funnel. Tampa Bay defense on the other side. We already talked about Hopkins. I don't love him, but I don't want to just completely fade him either because of the matchup. McLaurin, if you're looking for run backs against San Francisco, I think he makes some sense. But otherwise, that's about it. It's kind of another stars and scrubs day for me.
I love it when Eric drifts off topic with a vague segue, which is often, yeah, well, I mean, now you know the shtick. Now you see how we do it in the pros, or not the pros because I suck. Anyway, Jordan Klein, Alex Kaiser, member for 33 months. If I don't answer this, you're going to yell at me. No, you weren't. You love me, Jordan. DK single entry, Javonte and Nico, or Swift and Olave?
Swift Olave.
Swift Olave seems pretty nifty. I'm so close to 50-50 on that one. We could pull up the player compare tool, but in the interest of time, Javonte Nico, yeah, I'll go Swift Olave with you here. DeAndre Swift, a nifty back to get to here for tournaments today. One of the 48 of those that we have here, but best of luck to you. Also, I'm cheering for Jared Stidham out the wazoo here, so I'm going to need...
Go Stidham.
Yeah, wee-hoo. I can't wait to be broke. Fun stuff, but... cheapy wide receivers, we have so many to parse through. Cedric Wilson, we definitely can get to him. Demario Douglas, you don't like the ownership, totally get it. Still showing up in the Sims tool, still going to be getting to a little bit of him myself. Wandale Robinson, no thank you, but, you know, nice to see you. I don't know. I don't love anything going on there. Darius Slayton there at 3,400. If you made me get to a New York Giants wide receiver, would kind of prefer going even a little bit cheaper there. Firing him up. Quentin Johnston. Oh my God, are we really doing this? I'm surely doing it. It's awful. Cheapy wide receivers. Who are your favorites?
I basically just spread myself evenly across these guys, stacked when it made sense. So I'm saying these guys are my favorite. Just that's the context you should be approaching this with. So I'm just going to tell you the ones I'm willing to play. Quentin Johnson, DJ Chark, Cedric Wilson, Devontae Parker. Love him as a pivot off Dusty Pop Douglas. Jonathan Mingo, Michael Wilson, Justin Watson, Darius Slayton, Brandon Johnson, Treylon Burks, Alex Erickson. I don't have any more of 5% than any of these guys.
I'm with you. Yep. To the tight end position we go, because I think this will be a better use of our time. Also, we would very much appreciate you here. 10 minutes, 11 minutes. We come to every single Sunday. Matt and I also worked Christmas Eve and Christmas Day together. I mean, what a treat for him. What a treat. Well, if you want to say thank you to Matt for doing that and, you know, doing the Lord's work, you can smash the like button. We would very much appreciate that. And even though, sorry, Matt. It is what it is. To the tight end position we go. Trey McBride, the opportunity is outrageous, 5,900 going up against Philly in that dusty secondary themselves. Gerald Everett getting a ton of steam at 3,500, assumed to be the guy with the highest target share in that Chargers offense here with Easton Stick, that's for sure. Dalton Schultz, 4,300. And there's some chalky guys up here, but my favorite, I love getting to George Kittle on this slate today. If you go McCaffrey Kittle and you avoid the Ayuk Samuel combination, that is a stack of Purdy that I really like. I'm playing it in one of my bigger lineups here. I think it's an awfully fun situation. How do you feel about the popular tight ends? Who are you landing on the most?
I like Kittle quite a bit. I'm definitely willing to fade Everett at this ownership, I suppose. But McBride is reasonable. Like he's pretty pricey. So a lot of my lineups just didn't get to him because of pricing. Otherwise, like no one else is really drawing a ton of ownership. I do like Dalton Schultz a ton with CJ Stroud back. So as far as like semi-owned tight ends, he's one of my favorites. With you on Kittle. My top three are Dalton Schultz, Kittle, and Austin Hooper again. But that's just a price play. So you kind of see how I'm treating tight ends, spreading it evenly. But I'm not in on Gerald Everett.
I'm not in on it. Why do you hate Gerald Everett so? He's just too popular?
Yeah, and he's in a timeshare. Like the guy's crested 70% of the snaps twice. One of them was in their last game. Like they're using two tight ends no matter what. Even when Donald Parham got hurt, boom, Nick Vannett, 35, 23% of snaps. Stone Smart, converted quarterback, 26, 31% of snaps. Like he's just not a full-time player. And people have their wagon hitched to this guy all the way back from best ball when he was drafted way too high for a timeshare player. And that's not saying he can't do it. Again, I kind of like Easton Stick. I think he's going wildly underowned for all the dusty quarterbacks down there. But you have a player who just isn't on the field all the time. You have other really cheap receivers you can pivot directly to who are getting no ownership. So, I mean, like, what's the difference between Austin Hooper and Gerald Everett? I think they're both not very talented. They're both not in good offenses. And, I mean, volume's been there recently for Everett, but I don't think it's a guarantee.
I am with you. I think it's going to be a tough one to stomach. I mean, I have to play a little bit because of how much exposure I have to the Denver side of things. So it is what it is.
Johnston and Guyton and Alex Erickson. What's the difference?
Oh, no. Difference is my camera wants to turn off here again magically. Anytime you run the Sims tool on my end of things, camera disappears into the midnight. There we go. Oh, it was there for a second. Oh. We're just going to the HD version here. There we go. Wait for it. Jordan Klein. We're finishing out strong here. But we continue on our merry way here. Anything from the punt perspective here? I like Cruel. We talked about him, obviously. I think there's a case to be made to go even to the New England side of things with a little bit of Gajewski if you're really feeling sick. There's a reason it's in his name. Anything you like here to punt a tight end to get ourselves out of here and over to defense?
Hooper, he immediately had 2 targets on the first drive before Vegas had a bunch of defensive touchdowns and they didn't throw the ball. I think Jonnu Smith is interesting for Atlanta. Cade Otton's on the field every play, never does anything. Dawson Knox is on the field just as much as Kincaid now. You can gamble on the Indy tight ends, but yeah, I mean, I was hoping we were going to get Tunyon. We didn't, but not much down here, honestly.
All right, continuing our way to defense, 7 minutes to go. Let's Broncos country, let's ride. Once again, friends.
Oh my God.
Oh, I can't help it. It's just disturbing. I'm so happy that he is going to be out of the NFL. That is going to be fun. I'm happy to see it at this point.
I'm a huge future fan, so I do not like Wilson.
I don't either. Wilson. Yeah, it's more that like he doesn't talk to his teammates. Like that's got to be the weirdest thing ever. You look at Brady and the relationship he has with all of his teammates, and then you look at Wilson and they're like, oh yeah, I've never even talked to him. I don't even hang out with him. He doesn't hang out with us. I'm like, that seems problematic in a team sport, but that's just me. Cool. Let's do it. Defense that you like getting to the most for tournaments today is
the Broncos, because the Sims told me to.
I'm
looking at the defensive tab for the first time right now, and I have Broncos as my most owned, Chargers third, Texans. Broncos 1, Chargers 2, Texans 3.
Okay. My favorite for tournaments, if you're building out one lineup to roll them all and one lineup to find them, Lord of the Rings style, I love the Rams defense. Tyrod Taylor is pulling a ton of ownership. Again, maybe it doesn't end up as much. He's come down a little bit on this show here, down to 7.8%. There's been some fluctuation. Seems as though Hurts and Purdy, those are the guys that are pulling the most ownership, but I don't really want to go to Washington or Arizona defense. But the one quarterback who's pulling quite a bit here, Tyrod Taylor, I will take some Rams defense shots here. I think the Buffalo Bills make a lot of sense going up against Bailey Zappi. It's Bailey Zappi. I think there's a lot of reasons to get to some of these tournament pivots, but there's no doubt that the Sims tool has a lot of Chargers and Broncos showing up in it, and I think that is well warranted.
Yeah, I have no issues with that either. Anytime you take these defenses facing the questionable quarterbacks, you can make an argument, and I won't push back.
Okay, well then, yakety yak, don't push back. Anything else to talk about from defense? Or, I mean, again, you just pulled up the tab. That's adorable.
Yeah, I mean, I'd spend no time on this.
I love you for that. Bills defense, yeah, probably the highest projected we have in our projections right now. Yes, 10.73. That is a crazy high projection there. Zeke Elliott, we didn't talk about him at the running back position. I think he's fine. I think there's a lot of slates where I might end up with tons of him. Thank God he's up to 6K, and thank God he's a 14.5 point dog in this spot. But yeah, Buffalo defense, don't mind that one either. Guys, we have 4 minutes left here. We're going to recap our lineups. Don't forget to check out everything we have over here at Stochastic. We got NFL Showdown stuff. Again, it has been absolutely printing. And, somebody who's very, very happy with what the tool has been doing for me here in the last couple of days in the Showdown streets. You're going to want to take advantage of that for tonight. NFL Live Before Lock. I believe we have our old pal, Emac. Is he going to be on that one with Mr. Neil Orfield? I think that's the duo that we're looking at here for tonight. So check out NFL Live Before Lock for my Minnesota Vikings. Just trying to, send me off into the new year with a loss against the Packers at home. I'm sure that's coming. It's our team's playing. Do we want to have a little side bet on that, Matt Gajewski?
It's not my team, dude. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're a Bears fan. I forgot. Yeah. All right, well, there went that bit. Let's recap for the people. Favorite tournament stack to be getting to on the expensive end, cheap end?
Stroud, cheap end, stick.
Okay. I'm going Stidham on the cheap end, obviously. And then on the expensive end, I'll just eat the chalk. Well, one of the pieces of chalk. Brock Purdy, don't hate that one. But Patrick Mahomes, I think low owned for tournaments. I love getting to a little bit different for us in that direction. Running back, Rashad White, talked about him multiple times throughout this program and on the cheap end. Yeah, Roschon Johnson only ended up in 6% of my lineup, so I don't want to go crazy and say that I have a ton of him because that isn't how it ended up panning out for me. But on the cheap end, it is so hard to get away from Zamir White. Just play him.
Yeah, if you need a pivot, Jeff Wilson. The expensive end, I think pivot off White would be ETN. Those are tournament-specific plays.
Okay. Then, hold on 1 second. I have a mistake in my sheet. That is a good catch by me at the very last second. Notice that I had 41% of this Johnson fellow from Denver. So that seems like a little much, don't you think?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, just ever so slightly. Just ever
fix
so
that.
Slightly. Yeah, I just did. Tell the people wide receiver what you like.
So on the expensive end for tournament pivots, Nico Collins just right in relation with the Stroud stuff. On the cheap end, I like Beckham, especially as a pivot off the chalkier Douglas. And I guess Shaheed's kind of chalky. I like him as well. Otherwise, just spraying the cheap guys is what I'm doing.
Yep. Feels good. Yeah, Johnson. All right, fix that. Good to know. Noah Brown, love him for tournaments. I'm playing him in the Spy and all of the other things. So good luck to him. I have a McCaffrey Hill lineup I'm rolling out with Stidham there. That looks really fun. If Stidham could just be functional today, that would be an enjoyable experience. And maybe don't get 40 from Mr. Jalen Hurts. That might be the other key to the entire deal. And then tight end, love Krul on the bottom end. Going to play a lot of him there. Love Kittle in that mid-range, playing him quite a bit here as well. Round us out, tight end, favorite place to get to.
Yeah, I guess the more expensive guys, Kittle for sure. Cheaper, it's going to be Cooper.
All right, guys. Nicholas Lynn, $10. This is a great way to round it out before I turn it over to Matt, because he somehow so eloquently closes us out of these shows, especially like these landmark shows where, Christmas, Thanksgiving, we work all the holidays all the time here for you guys because, well, one, we love what we do, but two, we just appreciate you guys, and we feel the love coming from you in super chats such as this, or just overall in the sentiments, the nice things that you say on Twitters. Hey, you helped us win this money, that money. It feels nice. But $10 from Nicholas Lynn. Thanks for everything this year, fellas. See you next year. Thank you, Nicholas. We will. We'll be back here, no doubt about it, next week for week 18. But Matt, sign us off. Any final words for the people?
Yeah. Happy arbitrary day where people all get drunk. Be safe out there, guys. At least we got football to get us through it. And thank you for being here. Me and Eric greatly appreciate it, especially on these holidays. I know they're big slates. And you guys allow us to do what we love. So never going to take that for granted. Let's take that something down today, win some money, and be safe out there, everyone.
So beautiful. I want to cry. Matt_Gajewski. Go follow him over on the Twitters. Thank you to Jordan Klein. For Jordan, for Matt, I'm Eric Lindquist. Go follow me at Eric Lindquist over on the Twitters. NFL Showdown live before lock coming up to you guys tonight. So check that out. But otherwise, yes, all the things Matt said and more. Catch you guys in 2024. That rhymed.